Chapter 1191. Legacy of the Sea. Under Chapter 1191. Legacy of the Sea. Xueqi could not bear to put away the crystal bottle in his hands. With this, my problems have been solved. Previously, he had struggled to figure out a way to transport the diamond wood needed to construct advanced speedboats. Diamond wood could not be stored in a player's bag space. Transporting the wood via teleportation magic arrays would cost enough to choke any guild. The only efficient way to transport diamond wood was to use a teleportation array to reach a border town, and then rely on transport carriages to move the wood to another country's border town before transporting it via teleportation array once again. While the cost was still considerably high, one could save more time than transporting the wood via carriage the whole way. However, the 20 minor NPC cities Xueqi had asked the secret pavilion for were in several different countries. Moreover, none of them were near the Apocalypse Empire. Even if he relied on transport carriages, it would take a very long time for the wood to reach Ocean Viewing Town. On the other hand, if he relied on maritime transportation, not only could he save a lot of money, but he could also save plenty of time. One-horned sailboat, small sailboat, bronze rank. Maximum capacity: 120 people. Durability 900/900. Item storage when liberated: 7,000 bag space slots and 100 non-bag space slots. Additional active skill 1 dash. Magic shield. Absorbs up to 1 million damage for 5 minutes. Cooldown: 15 minutes. Additional active skill 2 dash. Thunder cannon. 1,200 yard range. Deals lightning damage to an area of 15 by 15 yards. Cooldown: 30 seconds. 6 cannons are currently equipped. Cannons can be replaced. Additional active skill 3 dash. Mana drive. Converts mana into motion, increasing movement speed by 30%. Every 10 magic crystals consumed extends duration by 15 minutes. Cooldown: 10 minutes. Additional active skill 4 dash. Thunder blast. Deals devastating damage to the area 500 by 30 yards ahead. Attack includes knockback and paralyzing effects. Cooldown: 5 minutes. Additional passive skill dash. Braving the winds and waves. When sailing with the wind, movement speed increased by 50%. When sailing against the wind, movement speed is unaffected. Although the one-horned sailboat's attributes were slightly lower than the hurricane sailboats, it was one of the best ships currently available in God's domain. Moreover, the small sailboat was much faster than speedboats. Even the secret silver-ranked Swift Dragon speedboat was only as fast as an advanced sailboat. The one-horned sailboat was significantly faster than the Swift Dragon sailboat. In addition, one could use magic crystals to increase the ship's movement speed. This would greatly reduce transportation time. While Xueqi admired the one-horned sailboat, the Freedom Alliance members a short distance away stared at him. "Commander, I've discovered some information about that man," Blue Joy hurriedly reported. "That person is Yi Feng, and he is a core member of the Zero Wing Guild. He is also the leader of the Azura battle team. He is very strong." As for Zero Wing itself, it is one of the upstart guilds that established when God's Domain launched. The guild's development speed is incredible, and Zero Wing has even suppressed veteran first-rate guilds. Right now, Zero Wing is Star Moon Kingdom's publicly acknowledged #1 guild. Recently, it even dared to provoke a few superpowers, but none of them can do anything about the guild, forced to turn a blind eye. Just what kind of backing does this guild have? It even dares to provoke superpowers. Passing Monarch could not help his astonishment when he heard Blue Joy's report. The Freedom Alliance consisted of small guilds and adventurer teams. They only knew that the virtual gaming world's various superpowers were powerful, but they did not know exactly how powerful these existences were. However, as the Freedom Alliance grew stronger, they uncovered more information. In fact, a super first-rate guild had previously decimated the Fifth Fleet. They had finally understood that, while their alliance might be a match for superpowers that hadn't focused on marine strength, the Freedom Alliance was no match for those guilds that had poured resources into their navy. Superpowers simply had too many experts. Moreover, they weren't ordinary experts. With so many, these superpowers could get their hands on advanced speedboats and bronze speedboats far more quickly than the Freedom Alliance. Hence, Passing Monarch found it unbelievable that Zero Wing had provoked multiple superpowers on land and still existed. However, what shocked Passing Monarch the most was the Swift Dragon speedboat. During the previous battle, Passing Monarch had come to understand that the Swift Dragon speedboat was not just a mysterious iron speedboat as he had assumed. It must be a secret silver speedboat. A secret silver speedboat. Since joining God's domain, Passing Monarch had never seen or heard about any of the naval powers owning a secret silver speedboat. Yet, such a speedboat had shown up in the hands of a land-based guild. This revelation excited Passing Monarch. He had come to the Sea of Death because he had heard of a low-level king-class sea monster in the area. In addition, he had heard that the various superpowers were purchasing thunder passes at astronomical prices. Hence, he had come to kill the king-class sea monster to earn some side income. After all, repairing his fleet was a considerable expenditure. He had also come here to recruit powerful adventurer teams or small guilds to join the Third Fleet. In the sea's end, strength spoke louder than words. If one wanted to obtain more resources, they needed a powerful force. Almost everyone in the sea's end had already been recruited, but it was a different story elsewhere. Land-based guilds, in particular, were just starting to extend to the ocean. He could find plenty of talent on land. Unfortunately, Passing Monarch hadn't expected the events to unfold as they had upon reaching the Sea of Death. Not only had he nearly lost his entire fleet, but he also failed to find any experts from small guilds. Rather, he had encountered a great expert with a secret silver speedboat, and this expert was backed by a guild like Zero Wing. "Commander, are you considering recruiting him?" Blue Joy asked, surprised when she saw Passing Monarch's expression. "He won't agree. After all, he is a member of a large guild. He even owns a secret silver speedboat. Why would he want to join us?" "Who said that I intended to ask him?" Passing Monarch rolled his eyes. "Have you forgotten the reason that we're here? Do you want to invite him to see Dragon City's festival?" Blue Joy's eyes widened in shock, unable to believe that Passing Monarch was considering something so mad. "Commander, Sea Dragon City's festival is our Freedom Alliance's greatest secret. It is too risky to invite outsiders." "I understand. However, you know our Third Fleet situation. We only have one opportunity each month. If we don't perform well, we'll lose our position." Passing Monarch wore a hesitant expression. In the end, however, he steered his speedboat towards Xueqi. As Xueqi was still occupied with his jubilation about acquiring the one-horned sailboat, he did not take any precautions, even after noticing the approaching bronze speedboat. He had no reason to do so. The difference between their strengths was clear to see. Passing Monarch and the other Freedom Alliance members were aware of the fact as well. In fact, Passing Monarch's group should feel grateful that he did not have any ill intentions. "Our contract had already been completed. What other business do you have with me?" Xueqi asked Passing Monarch calmly as the man stood on the bronze speedboat's deck. "Hello. I haven't introduced myself yet. I am Passing Monarch, the commander of the Freedom Alliance's Third Fleet. You might not have heard of the Freedom Alliance before, but we are considered the overlord of the sea's end. Brother Yifeng, seeing as you have a secret silver speedboat, we like to ask for your help," Passing Monarch announced straightforwardly. "I think that you'll be interested in my offer." "You have something to interest me?" Xueqi could not help but laugh. The only thing that could capture his interest was the ability to mass-produce advanced speedboats. Obviously, the Freedom Alliance didn't have this ability as it required a large number of materials and advanced engineers. "What if I tell you that it's related to the legacy of the sea?" Passing Monarch asked confidently. Chapter 1192. Forbidden Land. Chapter 1192. Forbidden Land. The legacy of the sea? Xueqi's heart rate quickened when he heard these words. However, he kept his composure as he said, "Tell me then." Simply put, the legacy of the sea provided a specialized hidden class. With this hidden class, players could become incredibly powerful in naval combat. However, the class had serious limitations. As long as players were not at sea, the class was no different than ordinary classes. The legacy of the sea was different from other hidden classes, which provided improvements in all sorts of environments. It was an extreme legacy. However, to players who frequently sailed, it was highly sought after. After all, even if they obtained the legacy at the basic rank, they could display astounding power when exploring the open ocean. The peak legacy of the sea could even grant the strength to face opponents of a higher tier. Hence, guilds that wanted to develop their naval forces hungered for the legacy of the sea. The various large guilds would target any player that obtained the legacy. With such a player, maritime transportation would become far safer. They would also have an easier time fighting sea monsters. As far as Xueqi knew, the Freedom Alliance had possessed many members with the legacy of the sea. This was also why the Freedom Alliance had become famous throughout God's domain, becoming a force that even the game's superpowers were hesitant to provoke. Seeing Xueqi's interest, Passing Monarch knew that he had hope for cooperation. To tell you the truth, our Freedom Alliance discovered the legacy in an ancient ruin. However, obtaining the legacy depends on the player's abilities once they enter the ruins. Due to a barrier restricting the number of people that can enter, our Freedom Alliance only allows each fleet to take 10 ships into the ruins. I'd like to invite Brother Yifeng to join us. With your speedboat and our third fleet strength, I believe that we can secure quite the bounty. We can sign a contract. If we obtain 2 legacies, one will go to you. How about it? The other third fleet members were stupefied by Passing Monarch's offer. They had never expected their commander to be so generous. However, after giving the matter some thought, they found it reasonable. After all, Xueqi owned a secret silver speedboat. If they did not show some sincerity, he wouldn't bother listening to their offer. Obtain 2 legacies? Xueqi curiously asked, are there many in the ruins? Each time we enter the ancient ruins, there are a number of legacy items. It just depends on whether or not we can leave with those items, Passing Monarch explained confidently. When the Freedom Alliance had first activated the ancient ruins, they had dispatched 11 fleets. Inside they discovered several legacy items. In the end, however, only 1 fleet had obtained the legacy of the sea. This fleet was now the strongest in the Freedom Alliance. As it had become the strongest fleet in the Freedom Alliance, it enjoyed far more benefits than its companions. The fleet was able to occupy the 3 large shipyards the Freedom Alliance managed. It was still a little too early for players to construct ships, as this task required many lifestyle players. However, a large shipyard could also repair ships. During an intense battle, ships usually suffered some damage. Repairing ships in a large shipyard not only reduced the repair costs, but it also increased the repair speed. On the other hand, the third fleet only possessed a large shipyard. There was simply no comparing their 2 fleets. The strongest fleet also received priority over special ammunition. It was given access to the most and the best available. The next ruin exploration was about to begin. How could he not make use of this opportunity to recruit Xueqi's help? What if we obtain 3 legacy items? Xueqi asked. I'm afraid that will be incredibly difficult. Brother Yifeng, you've never been to the ruins, but a large number of sea monsters occupy the area. Those monsters are extremely powerful. Traps litter the ruins, and there's a time limit once you enter. We won't have enough time to search for a third legacy item, Passing Monarch explained, smiling. He understood Xueqi's train of thought. So that's the case. Then, if we really obtain a third legacy item, can I have it? Xueqi asked, smiling. He now had a basic understanding of the ancient ruins rules. All right. If you obtain a third one, you can have it, Passing Monarch said nonchalantly. In any case, that wasn't going to happen. His promise was empty. We have a deal then. However, before we sign the contract, may I know when the ancient ruins will open? Xueqi asked. I still my own matters to deal with. If there is a clash in timing, I'm afraid that I cannot help you. Hearing Xueqi's words, Passing Monarch grew a little nervous. It's tomorrow, Passing Monarch replied, feeling slightly embarrassed. He could tell that Xueqi had something to do, and today was almost over. Xueqi was speechless. I understand that I am putting you in a difficult position. If there is anything we can help with, please tell us, Passing Monarch hurriedly offered. How about this? You guys can follow me. With your help, I should be able to save a little time, Xueqi said after considering the matter. The demon island he was heading to occupied the Sea of Death's inner region. Although it was not the most dangerous location in the Sea of Death, the island's monsters were troublesome. Normally, he would have to clear a path slowly. However, if he had an expert like Passing Monarch, who could lead a fleet with 4 bronze speedboats, he could save plenty of time. Passing Monarch and the others then followed Xueqi into the Sea of Death. Originally, the Freedom Alliance did not think much of traversing the Sea of Death. However, as Xueqi ventured deeper into the zone, they began to worry. They had never expected Xueqi to lead them into the Sea of Death's inner region. Not only did this area have many sea monsters, but the monsters were also very high-leveled. There were level 70 sea monsters everywhere, and the slightest mistake could destroy their ships and end their lives. "Commander, what do you think that Yifeng is trying to do here?" Blue Joy asked. When she saw the nearby sea monsters eye them like prey, goosebumps danced across her skin. Watching the swift dragon speedboat steady advance and giving the matter some thought, Passing Monarch said, "It must be for a quest." The Sea of Death's inner region was a forbidden land to current players. Aside from a quest, Passing Monarch could not fathom why anyone would come to this place. Questing here at this level? As Blue Joy looked at a distance level 70 Grand Lord sea monster, a thought suddenly came to her mind as she said, "Could he be here for an epic quest?" Hearing Blue Joy's words, the Freedom Alliance members paled. An epic quest was incomparably dangerous. Even now, nobody within the Freedom Alliance had completed one. As the Freedom Alliance members discussed Xueqi's goal, Xueqi led the group to 2 gloomy, twin islands. One could occasionally hear lung-tearing screams from the islands. It was enough to give one goosebumps. Surprisingly, over a dozen speedboats were docked beside the island. Based on these ships' appearances, it was clear that they were high quality. Why are there people here? Xueqi was momentarily stunned. Because this area was a forbidden land for players, one would have to pay a massive price to get this far. He had only arrived safely due to his familiarity with the sea zone and the quality of his speedboat. Passing Monarch and the others behind Xueqi were similarly stunned. Among the 14 speedboats docked around the island, one was a mysterious iron speedboat, 6 were bronze speedboats, and the rest were advanced speedboats. This fleet could rank at the very peak of the sea's end. After Xueqi snapped out of his momentary daze, he quickly shifted his attention to the symbol on these speedboats. The symbol consisted of 7 stars arranged in a circle. Xueqi frowned. This was the Flower of 7 Sins fleet symbol. Chapter 1193. Naval PvP. Under. Chapter 1193. Naval PvP. Grey fog enveloped Demon Island. Here, players' visibility range was limited to 150 yards. Meanwhile, Demon Island's monsters were all level 70 and above. At such a distance, level 70+ monsters could easily detect players. On the other hand, players couldn't see these monsters. However, players' main problem wasn't the island's fog. The real problem was the ever-present, dark corrosive power on the island. If players did not have high enough darkness resistance, they would not survive. Moreover, the further one ventured, the stronger this corrosive power would become. Boss Brute, 5 speedboats are approaching Demon Island. A level 43, black-clothed ranger reported as he watched the distant swift dragon speedboat. "Speedboats are approaching?" The bald, middle-aged man on the screen, Brute Spear, sneered and said, "Since we've already been seen, we won't let them leave alive. Get rid of them, but don't destroy their ships. We can use them to make up for the losses we suffered to get here." "Great! I haven't been on a mission for so long that I'm feeling rusty." The level 43 ranger licked his lips as he observed the approaching swift dragon speedboat. Although the Flower of 7 Sins received requests every day, experts of their rank didn't often receive missions. Following which, the ranger disconnected the call and ordered the other members on the speedboat, "Get ready. Once they get here, we'll take action. We'll use that to prevent their escape if necessary." Hearing the ranger's command, anticipation filled the other Flower of 7 Sin members aboard the speedboat. These fellows really are pitiful. They have only come this far after much difficulty, yet we'll send them back before they even set foot on the island. However, based on their speedboat's quality, they should be quite strong. Hopefully, we'll get to enjoy ourselves a bit. Each of us will handle one person. Once you've killed a player, give the others a chance. The Flower of 7 Sin members aboard the speedboat chatted among themselves. Xueqi and his temporary team weren't important at all to these players. Even if these players encountered experts from some superpower, the outcome wouldn't change. When Xueqi noticed the 7-star symbol, he instructed everyone to don their black cloaks, hiding their identities. Brother Yifeng, are they your enemies? Passing Monarch asked, curious about Xueqi's command. However, they had already agreed that they would follow Xueqi's lead. The fleet commander and his teammates did as they were told. They're not exactly enemies. However, it's best if we hide our identities. Xueqi did not bother to explain further. It doesn't hurt to be a little careful out in the fields, right? Although he did not know why the Flower of 7 Sins had come to Demon Island, it was not wise to expose their identities to a group of assassins. Although Xueqi would have preferred to approach the island from another side, Demon Island only had one entrance. Using the 7 Luminaries Ring space movement wasn't a viable option, either. A unique power enveloped the Sea of Death, preventing all spatial movement type skills. Otherwise, he would not have used the Swift Dragon speedboat to travel such a long distance. When Xueqi and the others were only 300 yards away from Demon Island's entrance, the Flower of 7 Sins members burst into action. Move out! Suddenly, 5 elementalists aboard the mysterious iron speedboat each took out a magic scroll. As the elementalists unfurled their magic scrolls, a dark blue magic array appeared on the water's surface. The sea water instantly began to freeze, and in the blink of an eye, the space within a 1,000-yard radius was covered by a sheet of ice. As a result, Xueqi and the Freedom Alliance's speedboats had been forced to a halt. As if they had long since prepared for this, the Flower of 7 Sins members stored their own speedboats and stepped onto the ice. Who are these people? Passing Monarch's expression darkened as he looked at the frozen sea surface. Why are they attacking us all of a sudden? Normally, when one encountered other players, particularly out at sea, one wouldn't abruptly attack. After all, there was no benefit to fighting each other. Moreover, without any information about the other party, picking a fight in the fields wasn't smart. One might end up throwing away their life. Due to Xueqi's command, they all wore black cloaks, so it was obvious that the other party did not know them, yet these players had attacked without hesitation. They were simply lunatics. Xueqi was also surprised. The Flower of 7 Sins was very secretive about what it did. The organization didn't normally take the initiative to provoke others. This was nothing like the organization's usual operations. Do they know that Demon Island has 7 Luminaries crystals? Xueqi wondered as he looked at the foggy island ahead. Logically, he should be the only one who knew about the island's 7 Luminaries crystals. Demon Island was home to an ancient shrine, and only by entering the shrine's inner region could one obtain the 7 Luminaries crystals. However, it was very difficult to locate the shrine itself, much less the shrine's inner region. Hence, the Flower of 7 Sins shouldn't know about the shrine. However, upon closer inspection, Xueqi discovered that every one of the players charging towards him was a red player. Dark players were among the group as well. It was obvious that they were veteran pikers. Damn it! If they want to fight, we'll give them a fight. Ready the cannons. We'll blast those bastards to smithereens. The Flower of 7 Sins attack enraged Passing Monarch. Now that the other party had stored their speedboats, they couldn't attack their ships. Their only option was to bombard the players. In God's domain, it took 40 seconds to store a ship. However, there were less than 300 yards separating these players. The other party would reach them before the 40 seconds were up. Furthermore, once players entered combat, they weren't allowed to store their ships. They had to finish these players off. As the cannons rang, one cannonball after another flew at the Flower of 7 Sins members. Foolish! The level 43 ranger in the lead sneered at the incoming cannonball. Although Speedboat's cannons were immensely powerful and could kill a player in one hit, expert players like himself could easily dodge cannon attacks by relying on the projectile prediction lines the system provided. The 100-plus Flower of 7 Sin members closed the distance to their targets rapidly. Soon, they were only 200 yards away. In front of these Flower of 7 Sin experts, the bronze speedboat's cannon fire was practically useless. These experts dodged every attack easily. Seeing this, Passing Monarch and the others were frustrated. They had thought that they had escaped danger after defeating the Sea Serpent King. Now, however, they had to face a large group of experts trying to rob them of their ships. Get ready to split up. Remember, do not damage the speedboats. Boss Brute has already laid his claim. The leading ranger commanded through the team chat. Boss, relax. We won't even give them the chance to destroy their own ships. The other members laughed. Before the battle had even begun, they looked at Xueqi and the others as if they were dead men. As the Flower of Seven Sins members were about to cross the 100-yard mark, a black beam flashed past them. Boom! The solid layer of ice vaporized instantly, exposing the blue seawater beneath it. The affected area spanned a radius of 25 yards. Meanwhile, 6 Flower of Seven Sins members died on the spot, leaving 12 weapons and pieces of equipment floating upon the water. Chapter 1194. Demons Appear. Chapter 1194. Demons Appear. The dragon cannon's attack had pulled a gasp from the Flower of Seven Sins remaining members. The previous few cannon attacks had only dented the ice, yet the dragon cannon had obliterated it. Moreover, its attack speed was at least double that of the previous cannons. Its attack range was even more impressive. Even without the high attack speed, with such a long range, it was extremely difficult to dodge the dragon cannon's attacks. What is that speedboat's rank? The leading, black-clothed ranger's expression twisted. He had seen a mysterious iron speedboat's cannons in action many times, so he was fully aware that a mysterious iron speedboat didn't have such fast and powerful attacks. Facing the dragon cannon at such a close range would be extremely dangerous. He had assumed that this fight would be nothing more than a game to kill time. He hadn't expected an actual opponent. Meanwhile, Passing Monarch and the other members of the Freedom Alliance celebrated the cannon's success. Ha ha ha! A secret silver speedboat is truly astounding. Just a single shot is enough to stun those bastards. I want to see if they still dare to fight us now. The Freedom Alliance members could not help but laugh at the frozen Flower of Seven Sins members. This Yifeng really is amazing. Passing Monarch sighed ruefully as he looked at the massive hole in the ice. He had to admit that Xueqi was a skilled strategist. While the Flower of Seven Sins members had been over 200 yards away, they had been spread out. Even if Xueqi had used the dragon cannon, he would have been lucky to kill even one player. However, as these players came within 100 yards, they clustered. Since such a short distance left them little room to react, Xueqi able to kill 6 players in one hit. After such an attack, their enemy should be more cautious. The other players might even give up the fight. However, as Passing Monarch pondered these assumptions, the Flower of Seven Sins members revealed excited grins. Brother Chen, our opponent seems to be a tough one. With this, we can finally use that move, right? A level 42 assassin asked, chuckling as he looked at the black-clothed ranger. He felt nothing in particular in regard to his fallen companions. All right. The ranger nodded helplessly when he saw the eager light in his companion's eyes. Don't let any of them get away. The same goes for their souls. Brother Chen, relax. We won't let their souls go to waste, the other members assured their leader as they licked their lips, eyeing Passing Monarch and the others. The Freedom Alliance members shuddered involuntarily. These players didn't look at them like enemies, but food. With the ranger's consent, the Flower of Seven Sins members wailed painfully, dark fog swallowing their bodies. In just a short moment, they transformed. Although their weapons and equipment remained the same, their skin was now pitch black, and they had blood-red eyes. 2 curved horns grew from their heads, while a pair of pitch black, bat wings and a tail grew from each of their backs. They didn't look human at all. What are these people? Passing Monarch's expression froze as he watched these players transform. The rest of the Freedom Alliance members were similarly stunned. There were players who could actually transform. This was definitely the first time they had seen something like this in God's domain. Not only had the Flower of Seven Sins members transformed physically, but they also emitted a terrifyingly oppressive aura. If these players had looked like a group of ferocious beasts, brandishing their fangs and claws, they now looked like monsters that no ordinary human had any hope of defeating. They all felt like humanoid lords. Among them, the ranger in the lead gave off the strongest aura. The Freedom Alliance members felt as if a higher being looked down upon them when the ranger turned his gaze towards their ships, Unlike the other Flower of Seven Sins members that transformed, this black-clothed ranger had 2 sets of wings growing from his back. Rather than a lord, he felt like a great lord. Go! Leave none alive! The ranger shouted as he pointed towards Xueqi and the others. The Flower of Seven Sins members fluttered their wings, lifting off from the ground. However, they weren't actually flying, only hovering above the ground. Even so, they moved much faster than players on foot. Even the dragon cannon would have a hard time hitting them with such speed. Are they really players? Blue Joy began to feel frightened. She discovered that these players' HPs had also undergone a massive transformation, increasing from their original 20,000 plus to above 100,000. Among them, the ranger's HP had even reached 170,000. No wonder why they were bold enough to attack other players on sight. So, they've already become demons. Xueqi frowned at the approaching Flower of Seven Sins members. God's domain had more playable races beyond human. Players could turn into demons. Only, doing so was the equivalent of turning their backs on the human race. Once a player became a demon, they would grow stronger. The increase was roughly the equivalent of half a tier. With the exception of the endurance attribute, players' basic attributes increased by around 15% depending on their classes. Demon players would also receive a huge boost to their HPs. Frankly, the increase couldn't compare to a real berserk skill. The only reason it was referred to as a half-tier improvement was because demon players' life ratings rose, improving their physiques by roughly 15% as well. However, although the improvement was incredible, becoming a demon also had a corresponding price. First, demon players were humanity's enemy, whether it be players or NPCs. If NPCs caught a demon player, the consequences would be unimaginable. If players captured a demon player and handed said player over to NPCs, they would receive an abundant reward. Second, demon players needed to hunt for player souls regularly. Otherwise, they would grow weaker as time passed. Conversely, the more souls a demon player harvested, the stronger they would become. Take the leading ranger for example. Due to devouring so many souls, he had been promoted from a low demon to a high demon. Hence he obtained far more power when he transformed. It was obvious that the Flower of Seven Sins members already had the physiques of Tier 2 players. Meanwhile, any player that lost their soul to a demon player was barred from the game for at least 1 day. Moreover, they would lose a minimum of 3 levels. Third, demon players had a far more difficult time raising their tiers as demons' tier promotion mechanics were different from humans. Normally, guilds forbade their members from becoming demons. It was detrimental to a guild's development, after all. Only a non-guild organization like the Flower of Seven Sins were bold enough to do something like this. As for the fourth and most fatal aspect, demon players suffered far more severe death penalties. If a demon player were killed, not only would they lose at least 3 levels, but they would also be barred from the game for 2 or 3 days. Their demon rank would also fall by 1, and recovering the lost rank would take quite some time. As a result, most players opted against becoming demons. Anyone capable of using berserk skills, use them now. If not, use Tier 2 magic scrolls. At this point, only Xueqi had maintained his composure. A pointless struggle. Just give up and let us devour you. The ranger demanded disdainfully as he snarled at Xueqi and the Freedom Alliance members preparing for a fight. In a short moment, the Flower of Seven Sins members boarded the Freedom Alliance's bronze speedboats. Members of the Flower of Seven Sins already had very high combat standards. Now that their attributes and physique had grown so much stronger, the Freedom Alliance lost over a dozen players in just a few exchanges. In contrast, the Flower of Seven Sins suffered no casualties whatsoever. Meanwhile, aboard the Swift Dragon speedboat, a level 42 berserker charged at Xueqi, his battle axe descending towards the swordsman. Dang! As the clang of metal echoed, this transformed level 42 berserker shot backward like a bullet, flying over a dozen yards away. Chapter 1195. Mistaken Calculations. Under. Chapter 1195. Mistaken Calculations. Commander, these people are too strong. If this continues, we'll all die here, Blue Joy said hurriedly through the team chat. We need to find a way to leave this place. After she had activated her berserker skill, she might barely be able to prevail in a one-on-one. However, in a one-on-two situation, she would only be suppressed. Although she was not the best at PvP in the Third Fleet, she could still rank within the top 10. Hence, if she was already faring so poorly, there was no need to mention how the other Freedom Alliance members were doing. Right now, their only advantage was the fact that none of these demon players could use berserk skills. This provided them, who could use berserk skills, an edge in basic attributes and allowed them to hold off the demon players for now. However, the duration of berserk skills was simply too short. If the other side dragged out the battle long enough, their side would definitely get wiped out. Just who are these people? Passing Monarch was also extremely anxious right now. The members of their Third Fleet could be considered experts in the Sea's End. He was even one of the top 10 experts in the entire Freedom Alliance. Nevertheless, after he arrived at the Sea of Death, it was as if he had come to an entirely different world as he met one expert after another. There would have been no problem if it was just Xueqi. Now, however, among the 100+ players assaulting them, every one of their opponents was an expert superior to them. He even began doubting whether he was playing the same game as he had been up to now. Despite Passing Monarch having already activated his berserk skill, his strength and speed superior to the black-clothed rangers, he failed to land any attacks on the ranger at all. It was as if the ranger had seen through all of his attacks. The ranger could not only dodge his attacks easily but also launch attacks at his blind spots while dodging, and this left him no choice but to defend himself. Even launching counterattacks became difficult. If not for the healers at the rear line healing him, he would have already perished by now. Currently, less than 70 people remained in the Third Fleet. Against the Flower of Seven Sins members, not only did they not possess a numerical advantage, but they were also inferior in quality. Everyone, gather together. Destroy all the speedboats and retreat. Passing Monarch commanded as he gritted his teeth. Now that the outcome of the battle was already obvious, there was no meaning in them continuing this battle. Without a doubt, they would be annihilated, and their speedboats would fall into the Flower of Seven Sins' hands. Rather than accepting such an outcome, it would be much better to destroy their speedboats. That way, neither side would end up winning. As soon as Passing Monarch said so, however, he saw a 2-meter-tall berserker blasted from the Swift Dragon speedboat. As the berserker's body crashed heavily into the icy ground, his HP fell by over 3,000. Torrent, are you all right? Several nearby Flower of Seven Sins members could not help but look at the level 42 berserker in surprise. Although Violent Torrent's combat standard was only average for their team, he was equipped with a complete set of level 40 fine gold set equipment and wielded a level 40 dark gold battle axe. In terms of strength, he could rank within the top 5 among their team. After demonizing, his strength would have increased by 17%. Even a berserker equipped with a complete set of level 40 dark gold set equipment would lose out slightly to Violent Torrent in terms of strength. Despite that, he had actually been sent flying by a swordsman. It was simply inconceivable. I'm fine. My hands are just a little numb. It seems his berserk skill should be a strength-oriented one. You guys should be careful, the berserker named Violent Torrent replied nonchalantly as he shook his hands. The others nodded in response to his words. They then began carefully approaching Xueqi. After they transformed into demons, they would lose the ability to use berserk skills, the price they had to pay to become demons. Otherwise, it would simply be too overpowered if they could stack the attribute bonus they received from demonizing with the effects of a berserk skill. The main god system obviously would not allow this to happen. However, although their demon transformation indeed did not provide as many attributes as a berserk skill did, the 15% improvement to their physiques allowed them to dodge even attacks from opponents with superior attributes. With this, they could slowly whittle down their opponents. At this time, a level 42 silver-robed elementalist said, "Since it's a strength-oriented berserk skill, we'll attack him from a distance. I'll support you guys from the side," Violent Torrent said as he dashed back towards the Swift Dragon speedboat. However, the Flower of Seven Sins members had obviously misunderstood something. Xueqi did not have any of his berserk skills activated right now. His previous slash was simply a normal attack. The reason why Violent Torrent went flying was entirely the recent upgrade to Xueqi's equipment. He had yet to adapt himself to the changes. Hence, he had failed to control his power properly and unintentionally sent Violent Torrent flying. When Violent Torrent was halfway back to the Swift Dragon speedboat, Xueqi had already jumped down from the craft. He then used Wind Blade and dashed at the Berserker. His speed so fast that nobody managed to catch a clear sight of him. So fast. By the time Violent Torrent reacted, Xueqi was already before him, the Abyssal Blade descending towards him. Pang! Violent Torrent instinctively executed Whirlwind Slash to block the Abyssal Blade. What power! The intense force pushing down on Violent Torrent nearly drove him to his knees. Fortunately, the icy ground had served to cushion some of the impact, though web-like cracks formed on the ice layer as a result. However, almost at the same time as Violent Torrent stopped the Abyssal Blade with his battle axe, Xueqi slashed Killing Ray at the Berserker's chest. Chop! Minus 25,578. Instantly, Violent Torrent lost close to a quarter of his 110,000 HP. Demon players sure have high HP and defense. Xueqi was slightly surprised. If Violent Torrent were an ordinary level 42 Berserker, Xueqi could have reduced the Berserker's HP to a critical level in one attack. Demon players didn't just have a lot of HP. Their defenses got a significant boost as well. Hence, it was very difficult for ordinary players to capture demon players. Normally, one would need at least a party of players to capture a demon player of the same level. Due to this, quite a few independent players and dark players would choose to become a demon. In the past, even the expansion pack, Demon's Return, was triggered. Meanwhile, one of the conditions for triggering this expansion pack was the number of demon players in God's domain reaching a certain level. After the Demon's Return expansion pack was triggered, a demon empire suddenly appeared in God's domain. The incident back then had thrown God's domain into chaos. Who is that guy? Why can he cause so much damage to Torrent? Several Flower of Seven Sins members nearby were momentarily stunned. They were fully aware of how frightening their defense became after transforming into demons. Not to mention, the Berserker class was a plate armor class. A Berserker of the same level would be fortunate to deal minus 6,000 damage to Violent Torrent after using a powerful skill. Despite all that, Xueqi had inflicted over minus 20,000 damage on Violent Torrent with just the most basic chop skill. At this time, an assassin snapped out of his daze and shouted hurriedly, "Quickly heal Torrent." If even an ordinary skill could already deal so much damage, then Xueqi could kill Violent Torrent in just a few moves. If Violent Torrent did not receive enough heals in time, the swordsman would make short work of him. MHM. A blue-robed demon cleric quickly began chanting. Meanwhile, Xueqi sent a glance at the Freedom Alliance members, noticing that they would not be able to hold out for much longer, as they had already begun destroying their own speedboats. I need to finish them off fast. Having no other choice, Xueqi activated Heavenly Dragon's power. The instant Xueqi activated Heavenly Dragon's power, a golden glow wrapped around his body. Faint golden dragon scales appeared around his body, making it seem as if he had just donned dragon scale armor. His body also exuded an invincible aura. He then sent a slash at the Berserker before him. Illusory Shadow. Before Violent Torrent could see what was going on, 6 streaks of blue light cut across his body, penetrating his tough armor. With a face filled with confusion, he fell to the ground as his HP reached 0. Chapter 1196. Strategic Level Expert. Chapter 1196. Strategic Level Expert. He died. The surrounding Flower of Seven Sins members could not help but gape in shock. Even the demon cleric chanting a greater healing stopped abruptly as he stared at Violent Torrent's motionless body. Violent Torrent had close to 80,000 HP remaining just now. With his strength, he should have been able to resist for some time. Otherwise, the demon cleric wouldn't have chosen to cast Greater Healing, which had a considerably long casting time. At this moment, when the several Flower of Seven Sins members turned to look at Xueqi, a possibility suddenly occurred to them, and they could not help but shudder at the thought. That possibility was that Xueqi had not used his Berserk skill when he was fighting Violent Torrent before, even after the Berserker had turned into a demon, and had activated the skill only now. Not good. We met a hard one. He's a peak expert. Hurry up and contact Brother Chen, a thinly built man said. The man felt his breathing stifled as he looked at Xueqi. There were few peak experts even in the Flower of Seven Sins. These existences were normally part of the organization's middle management. Xueqi would have little trouble going up against more than a dozen half-step refinement realm experts like themselves at the same time, especially now that he had activated his berserk skill. Currently, only Brother Chen, the ranger leading the team this time, as well as a few others could possibly resist someone like Xueqi for long. Just as this thinly built assassin was done speaking, Xueqi advanced and suddenly appeared before a guardian knight. Without hesitation, this guardian knight activated protection blessing. However, Xueqi remained unperturbed by this reaction as he brandished killing ray. Thundering flash. Immediately, 4 blue arcs of lightning struck at 4 different locations. Combat technique 4 Moon Lotus. After the 4 lightning snakes pierced through the guardian knight, they each struck at the 4 magical class players behind him. The guardian knight instantly lost over half of his 140,000 HP, whereas the 4 magical classes behind him lost 1/3 of theirs and had their spellcasting interrupted by the impact of thundering flash. Block him. Don't let him get close to the magical classes. Hearing this, a guardian knight immediately used Justice Roar on Xueqi. The demon cleric at the rear also cast Truth Shield and Rapid Healing on the guardian knight. As for the other melee players, they each used a control skill on Xueqi. At the same time, the ranged classes launched attacks to seal Xueqi's movements. Xueqi could not help but admit that every member of the Flower of Seven Sins was an expert. Their coordination with each other was also impeccable. In combination with their high HP and defense, it made dealing with them extremely difficult. If it were any other expert here, they would definitely choose to pull back first. However, Xueqi never entertained the thought of retreating. Instead, he activated Defensive Blade without hesitation, greatly extending his attack range. At the same time, he switched the basic Tyrant title to the Swordsmanship Master title, increasing his attack speed by 30%. Sword's Orbit. Starlight immediately emerged around Xueqi's body. Not only did he manage to block all incoming attacks, but before anyone could react, everyone within a 15-yard radius of him also began losing HP rapidly. Despite the demon cleric at a distance spamming heals on the guardian knight, he still failed to keep the MT alive. In the blink of an eye, everyone within 15 yards of Xueqi died. Meanwhile, the oracle reporting to the ranger called Brother Chen was stupefied. "Hello? Why are you contacting me at such a time? Did something happen?" The level 43 ranger asked as he toyed around with passing monarch. "Brother Chen. And not good. There's a monster here." The level 42 oracle stuttered. During the time the oracle was giving his report, Xueqi had used silent steps and appeared behind the thinly built assassin, who had just activated wind steps. Xueqi then executed Chop, the speed of his attack so fast that the assassin did not even react, as he died instantly. "A monster. Did one run all the way out here from the island?" the ranger asked, perplexed. "And no. There's a peak expert on the speedboat we attacked. Torrent and the others. They're all dead." At this moment, the oracle was quickly losing his ability to speak as he watched his companions die one after another. "A peak expert? Okay, I'll head over there now." The ranger immediately grasped the severity of the situation. Ignoring passing monarch, he turned towards a few of his companions, who were killing the other members of the Freedom Alliance, and shouted, "Hammer, you guys follow me. Torrent and the others are in trouble." Every peak expert was a strategic weapon in a team battle. If not properly contained, a peak expert could easily turn the tide in a fight between hundreds of players. Violent Torrent and the 17 others that went to the Swift Dragon speedboat were merely half-step refinement realm experts. They were simply no match for an expert of such caliber. If the ranger delayed, they would no doubt be annihilated. Hence, he needed to hurry over there right away. "He's leaving." Passing monarch was filled with confusion as he looked at the black-clad ranger flying towards the Swift Dragon speedboat. However, the ranger's departure was a good thing for the Freedom Alliance since the ranger and the 3 companions that followed after him were the ones who had killed the most Freedom Alliance members. With the bronze speedboats less than 50 yards away from the Swift Dragon speedboat, the ranger took less than 5 seconds to glide across this distance. However, as soon as the black-clad ranger descended, he was shocked by the scene before him. At this moment, none of the 18 people sent to snatch the Swift Dragon speedboat was alive. However, only 5 seconds had passed since he received the report. 18 half-step refinement realm experts who had turned into demons had died, just like that. The ranger glared at Xueqi, who stood a short distance away, and asked coldly, "Where are your companions? Or are they thinking of ambushing us while we're fighting you?" No matter how he looked at it, one person simply could not have finished off so many demonized half-step refinement realm experts within such a short time. At the very least, such a feat required several experts working together. Companions. Xueqi shook his head and said, "I'm the only one here. If you ran all the way here just to ask this, can we start the fight now? Hammer, you and Letter deal with that guy. Scorpion and I will assist from the side and prevent others from ambushing us," the ranger commanded hurriedly. It was obvious he did not believe Xueqi. "Leave it to me." The level 43 berserker named Hammer nodded seriously as he looked at the cloaked Xueqi. The fact that the swordsman before them could work with other experts to get rid of violent torrents groups so quickly proved that his strength was extraordinary. Not to mention, Hammer also sensed a dangerous aura coming from Xueqi, and he could tell that he was definitely no match for Xueqi in a one-on-one fight. However, if he coordinated with Letter, even if they could not defeat Xueqi, it would also be impossible for Xueqi to kill them. However, just as Hammer finished speaking, Xueqi had already dashed towards him. So fast. The assassin named Letter was shocked. At this speed, even if he activated a berserk skill in his human form, he would be no match for Xueqi. If not for his demon transformation improving his physique, he wouldn't even be able to catch a glimpse of Xueqi's figure. Hammer also paled at this sight. Hurriedly, he brandished the great sword in his hands and executed the Tier 1 skill Death's Harvest, which could be used only in his demon form. Immediately, numerous streaks of black light shot forward, enveloping a cone-shaped area 20 yards before him. This skill could not be blocked, only dodged. Is he dead? When the black light dissipated, there was no sign of Xueqi's figure anywhere. Letter, be careful. At this time, the ranger, who stood 10 yards behind the assassin called Letter, suddenly noticed Xueqi appearing above the assassin's head. However, his warning came too late. Xueqi promptly used the Tier 2 taboo skill Instant Strike, his attack speed increasing by 500% and damage by 400% for 3 seconds. The distant ranger only saw many streaks of blue light flashing in front of him. Before the assassin called Letter could even activate Vanish, his body was already falling to the ground. Shortly after, Hammer finally reacted to the situation. However, by the time he did, several streaks of blue light were heading towards him. Responding slightly better than Letter, Hammer executed Whirlwind Slash to defend himself. However, as the gap in speed between him and Xueqi was too massive, before his greatsword could even start picking up momentum, he had already been struck several times. Hammer's vision then turned gray as his body fell to the ground. Who is he? The ranger shuddered when he saw this scene. The male elementalist called Scorpion took an involuntary step back, terror surfacing on his face. 2 refinement realm experts, each with over 100,000 HP, were actually killed instantly. How was this just a peak expert? Chapter 1197. Demon God. Chapter 1197. Demon God. At this moment, fear filled the eyes of the black-clad ranger as he looked at Xueqi. If the opponent was only a peak expert, then after transforming into a high demon, he could more or less resist if he teamed up with Scorpion. Once Xueqi's berserk skill was over, they could then counterattack. However, the swordsman before them was evidently not just a peak expert. Forget the 2 of them working together, even if he had everyone in the team come over, they would merely be throwing their lives away. The disparity in attributes between both sides was simply too massive. Even he, who was a high demon, had not managed to get a clear look at Xueqi's attacks. High demons received a 20% improvement to their physiques, which was 5% more than low demons. Their main attributes would also increase by 20%. Yet, even then he still could not keep up with Xueqi. We're retreating. Saying so, the ranger immediately extended his wings in preparation to leave. At the same time, he had also sent the command to withdraw in the team chat. But what about the situation on Boss Brute's side? The elementalist named Scorpion asked hurriedly. Boss Brute said not to let anyone enter Demon Island. Fool! The ranger sent a glare at Scorpion. Ignoring the elementalist, the ranger directly flew away. They were currently demons. The death penalty they would suffer was extremely severe. If they already knew that they could not stop Xueqi, persisting in the attempt would only be foolish. Moreover, even if they wanted to stop Xueqi and the others from entering Demon Island, the best place to fight him was not at sea, but on Demon Island itself. They were demons. They had very high innate magic resistance, particularly darkness resistance. They did not need to worry about the dark corrosive power on the island. However, the same could not be said for their opponents. More importantly, Demon Island was shrouded in gray fog, which significantly reduced the player's range of vision. However, demons like themselves were not affected by Demon Island's gray fog at all. They would have plenty of opportunities to deal with Xueqi and the others, whose berserk skills would be on cooldown at that time. It's too late to run away now. Xueqi did not give the Ranger and Elementalist any opportunities at all. Activating Wind Rider, he left behind an afterimage where he had stood as he instantly appeared before the two Flower of Seven Sins members. He then violently swung down, killing Ray. Thunder Flame Explosion. Lightning and fire descended on the Ranger and Elementalist, and even the ice layer beneath the two began crumbling and evaporating. He escaped. When the lightning and flames dissipated, Xueqi only saw one demon corpse floating on the water. This corpse belonged to none other than the Elementalist Scorpion. As for the black-clad Ranger, he was nowhere in sight. However, Xueqi was not particularly surprised by this result. Unlike low demons, high demons not only received more improvements to their physiques and basic attributes but also got to learn some powerful demon skills, even a skill with a powerful escape ability. Dark Transfer. This skill allowed one to teleport to any location within a 3,000-yard radius. Its activation required no preparation time, but it had a long 6-hour cooldown. The existence of this skill made killing high demon players very difficult. The Ranger managed to escape, but the other Flower of Seven Sins members fleeing back to Demon Island were not high demons. Without hesitation, Xueqi immediately began chasing those demon players. Although both sides were moving in the air, Xueqi was able to fly freely in the sky due to Wind Rider, whereas the demon players could only glide. The speeds of the two sides were worlds apart from each other. As for the attacks launched by the demon players, not only did Xueqi easily dodge them, but he even used the opportunity to shorten the distance between them. Anyone that Xueqi caught up with got killed in just a few hits. Initially, there were over 80 low demons fleeing back to Demon Island. However, the ones that actually managed to reach the island numbered less than 30. Once they reached Demon Island, Xueqi gave up the pursuit. Demon Island was rife with level 70+ monsters. If he was not careful, he would definitely attract the monsters' attention. If that happened, not only would he not be able to kill the Flower of Seven Sins members, but he might even lose his life. In fact, as soon as Xueqi stepped onto the island, he noticed more than a dozen Shadow Stalkers. Shadow Stalker, Dark Creature, Great Lord. Level 71. HP 37, 000, 000/37, 000, 000. When Passing Monarch and the others set foot on the island as well, they could not help but gasp when they saw this scene. No sooner had they arrived than the sight of over a dozen level 70+ Great Lords greeted them. Moreover, these were merely the ones they could see. What about the ones in the forest that they couldn't see? This was definitely not a place humans should come to. At this time, a deafening roar came from the middle of the island and reverberated throughout the place. Even the Shadow Stalkers took fright at this roar. Immediately after, a black and white light pillar shot up from the heart of the island. The instant this light pillar appeared, Passing Monarch and the others suddenly felt as if their bodies no longer belonged to themselves, so much so that they could not even twitch their fingertips. Only after a brief period did they gradually recover their mobility. What is that? Passing Monarch stared at the black and white light pillar, thoroughly shocked by the spectacular sight before him. At this moment, the skies above Demon Island began crumpling, forming a black hole. Passing Monarch could vaguely make out a gigantic eye inside the black hole. Just one glance at this eyeball gave him an appreciation of just how frightening the creature inside that black hole was. In reality, it wasn't just Passing Monarch and the others that felt fearful. At this moment, even Xueqi could sense an aura of death looming over him. In addition, he detected an extremely familiar aura emanating from that black hole: divine might. However, the divine might he was feeling now was completely different from when he encountered it before. In previous instances, the divine might he felt all came from items. Moreover, as the divine might of these items originated from gods, the divine might they could radiate was extremely weak. If Xueqi were to compare the divine might from items and the divine might he was feeling now, the former felt as thin as air, while the latter felt as dense as mercury. How can this be possible? As Xueqi stared at the massive red eyeball, he was utterly confused by what was going on. Could this be an event on Demon Island? In God's domain, there would frequently be such events occurring. To players, these events were both disasters and opportunities. However, Xueqi very quickly rejected this thought. According to what he knew about events, a real god simply could not appear. At this moment, he could say with absolute certainty that the massive eyeball was the eye of a god. The reason for his certainty was personal experience with this kind of pressure, so he definitely could not be wrong. At the same time, the Flower of Seven Sins members on Demon Island all revealed excited expressions one after another as they looked at the giant eyeball in the sky. Success! Boss Brute's side succeeded. Ha ha ha! The future of God's domain will be the Flower of Seven Sins' era. At this moment, the Flower of Seven Sins members were so excited that they completely forgot about their battle with Xueqi before. Meanwhile, along with the appearance of this giant eyeball, 3 dazzling purple gold items fell out from the crumpled space. Every one of the 3 items radiated powerful divine might that could make one shudder. Immediately after, the sound of a system announcement entered Xueqi's and the others' ears. System announcement. Some players have activated the new expansion pack, Demon God's Disturbance. Chapter 1198. Darkness Rising. Chapter 1198. Darkness Rising. The system announcement echoed in everyone's minds for a long time. The players throughout God's domain who had received the news were stunned. Some players had gone directly to the game's official website, searching for any information about this latest expansion, whereas others thought nothing of it at all. After all, this wasn't the first expansion the game had launched. They had long since gotten used to such occurrences. However, when Xueqi, who was on Demon Island, heard this system announcement, he was dazed for a long moment. Demon God's Disturbance? Xueqi watched the black hole in the sky slowly close, chaos gripping his pounding heart. Had he known something like this would happen, he would have done anything to stop the Flower of Seven Sins. God's domain had many expansion packs. Among them, some had very little influence over the game, while some would impact the world significantly. Take the Abyss Invasion expansion pack for example. The expansion pack had only affected the Twin Towers Kingdom and neighboring countries. The Demon God's Disturbance expansion pack, however, affected all of God's domain. One could even say that the expansion pack's impact was just as massive as a system update. Although the Demon God's Disturbance expansion pack hadn't been introduced on the official website, it wasn't good news for ordinary players. Rather, this expansion pack benefited dark players and demon players. Due to this Demon God's Disturbance expansion pack, the system's restrictions on God's domain had loosened, possibly broken, allowing the dark forces to grow exponentially stronger. As a result, the dark forces found more areas where they could gather. These gathering points referred to NPC towns. As the dark forces occupied more towns, dark players could extend their reach, have an easier time killing players, and exchange the points they obtained for more power. There were also certain tools that could allow one to kill other players in an NPC town and leave safely, avoiding the NPC guards. After the Demon God's Disturbance activated, NPC towns ceased to be safe havens for players. Moreover, if one were not careful while exploring the fields, Dark Force NPCs might even claim their life. NPC bandits, in particular, became more prevalent. Due to this, God's domain would descend into chaos. Ambushes in the fields became more frequent, and Dark Force NPC raids on NPC towns would become a daily occurrence. However, this was not the most important change. After triggering this expansion pack, all of God's domain's monsters would gain the ability to learn and evolve. They could then increase their combat power. To put it simply, if a large number of players continuously killed a region's monsters, these monsters would gradually grow stronger, becoming increasingly difficult to kill. Of course, This improvement was not without limits. Common monsters could, at most, grow to the standards of the Trial Tower's second floor, while elite and special elite monsters could aim for the third floor standard. Chieftains could grow to the fourth floor standard, lords and high lords to the fifth floor standard, and great lords and grand lords to the sixth floor standard. Fortunately, there was a way to cope with this problem. Grind where few others venture. Monsters that players didn't farm would keep their low standards. Players could also pioneer high-level maps. These places had similarly low player populations. Due to this expansion pack, the various large guilds had grown more enthusiastic about pioneering new maps. They had no longer restricted themselves to their own territories. This, in turn, increased the intensity of the competition between guilds. On the bright side, monsters that evolved and improved would provide more EXP, allowing players to level up much more quickly. Brother Yifeng, this island is too dangerous. I think we should leave, Passing Monarch anxiously advised Xueqi. Although the giant eyeball in the sky had disappeared, the island felt even more dangerous before. His instincts told him to run. Hearing this, Xueqi took a look at the shadow stalkers, which had suddenly gone berserk. Sighing, he said, "All right, let's leave then." With the situation on Demon Island as it was not suitable for them right now. The demon god's aura had driven the island's monsters berserk. In this state, their combat power had risen by at least 30%. Demon Island had already been dangerous for him. Now that the monsters had gone berserk, it was impossible to reach the ancient ruins. If he wanted to do so, he could only wait until the monsters here reverted to their normal state. As Xueqi and the others had turned to leave, a monster's roar reached them from within the forest. In the next moment, a three-headed demonic hound that was over 5 meters tall barreled out of the trees. A savage man with disheveled hair sat upon this demonic hound. The man stood over 2 meters tall, half a head taller than Kola. The man had thick, robust arms. The man carried a crimson spear on his back, the length of which was decorated with blood-red divine runes. A fiery glow swallowed the spear's tip. At first glance, it was obvious that this spear was no ordinary weapon. A group of players followed the man atop nothing less than bronze mounts. These people were mostly around level 43. Who are these people? Passing Monarch turned his head towards the 6-man party, shocked. The other Freedom Alliance members were similarly surprised. The three-headed demonic hound was very large. Rather than a mount, it looked like a lord-ranked monster. They had never even heard of such a mount before. Even more shockingly, the savage atop the demonic hound was actually level 45. Meanwhile, Xueqi recognized this savage the moment he laid eyes on him. Brute Spear. In the past, Brute Spear had been a relatively well-known expert of the Flower of Seven Sins. Back then, the rest of the world had referred to him as the Brute God. In God's domain, any player that was nicknamed a God had been a Tier 6 God-ranked expert. The reason he had been known as Brute God and not Spear God was his inhuman strength in both the game and the real world. The 5 others behind Brute Speed were all experts from the Flower of Seven Sins. Their combat standards were on par with the black-clothed ranger from before, having already reached the flowing water realm. Even in super guilds, an expert party like this was rare. One would only encounter them with some frequency in the dark arena. "You guys killed my men just now?" Brute Spear asked coldly as he looked down at Xueqi and the others. Brute Spear's voice was rough. Despite him speaking normally, his words sounded like a tiger's roar. He was like the generals of ancient times and gave off a very scary feeling. "Fellow friend, is there some misunderstanding between us?" Passing Monarch asked hurriedly when he noticed Brute Spear and the other Flower of Seven Sins members showing signs of taking action. "We didn't take the initiative to attack your people. They attacked us first. We were simply retaliating." "I don't care. Right now, I'm asking whether you guys killed my men or not," Brute Spear demanded once again, ignoring Passing Monarch's words. Chapter 1199. Demon God's Items. Under Chapter 1199. Demon God's Items. Cold ruthlessness colored Brute Spear's words. Everyone suddenly felt the surrounding air grow heavy as an intense pressure weighed down on them, making it difficult to breathe. Freedom Alliance had the advantage in numbers, but Passing Monarch did not doubt that, if Brute Spear and the others wanted to kill them, they would be powerless to resist. The difference in strength between both sides was too obvious. Compared to the black-clothed ranger he had fought earlier, Brute Spear and the others were much stronger. If they simply fell in a fight against Brute Spear and his companions, they could deal with the outcome. However, when the black-clothed ranger had killed his companions, even resurrection hadn't revived the dead. His companions had been thrown from the game and hadn't been able to log back in. Hence, if they died now, they would lose their monthly opportunity to obtain the Legacy of the Sea. As for relying on Xueqi, while Passing Monarch admitted that Xueqi was monstrously strong, the swordsman had just used his berserk skill. He couldn't use it again within a short time. His chances of defeating the 6 experts before them weren't great. While Passing Monarch and the Freedom Alliance members remained silent, not sure how they should answer Brute Spear's question, Xueqi opened his mouth and said, "That's right. I did it." When Passing Monarch and the others heard Xueqi's honest answer, they paled as they fell speechless. How could Brute Spear possibly not know that they were the ones responsible for his companions' deaths? It was obvious that Brute Spear was toying with them. "A fight is inevitable. Flee with everything you have," Passing Monarch said hurriedly in the team chat. In reality, they were already considerably lucky. If not for Xueqi repulsing the Flower of Seven Sins members earlier, they would have lost both their lives and their bronze speedboats. Now, however, even if they died, they could keep their speedboats. As Passing Monarch prepared for a fight, Brute Spear jumped down from the 3-headed demonic hound. However, instead of revealing killing intent, he smiled. "Ha ha ha. Not bad. You actually admit that you killed my men. Brat, I have to admit you're quite courageous." Brute Spear laughed at the cloaked Xueqi. "On behalf of your bravery, I'll give you a chance to leave this place with your lives. Of course, you guys can refuse my offer. However, you'll have no hope of escape. Like your companions, you'll be barred from God's domain for some time. Not only that, but you'll also lose 3 levels when you log back in." "How is that possible? Doesn't the death penalty only reduce 1 level?" The Freedom Alliance members could not help but panic. Losing 1 level was already a heavy punishment. If they lost 3, they would need a long time to catch up. As for whether Brute Spear was lying or not, the man had no reason to. After all, the initiative was in Brute Spear's hands. Whether they were going to battle or not was all up to Brute Spear. "What you're going to do is have a match with me. You all can even come at me together. As long as you shave off a quarter of my HP, you win. If you win, you may leave here in one piece. On the other hand, if you lose, you'll need to contribute a portion of your souls," Brute Spear said, smiling as he glanced at Passing Monarch and the others. Contribute our souls? This was the first time Passing Monarch had heard of such a thing, and he could not help but ask, "If we contribute our souls, what kind of price will we have to pay?" "It's nothing much. You'll just be in a weakened state for several days. You won't actually die," Brute Spear explained, fully understanding Passing Monarch's worries. "After you guys contribute your souls, I'll similarly let you all leave safely." Based on his personality, he should have already killed every one of these people. However, he had just received 3 treasures from the demon god, and he needed someone to test them on. Otherwise, he would have taken action instead of wasting so many words with these people. "Brother Yifeng, what do you think?" Passing Monarch could not help but turn to ask Xueqi. To him, Brute Spear's conditions seemed beneficial. Originally, Passing Monarch thought that Brute Spear would ask for their bronze speedboats in exchange for letting them go. However, dealing with a weakened state for a week or so was better than losing 3 levels. Moreover, it also wasn't certain that they would lose. If all of their members were allowed to attack together, their chances of victory would be quite high. Contributing souls? The name of a certain item suddenly popped into Xueqi's head when he heard Brute Spear's explanation. The Soul Orb. In the past, this was a very well-known item in God's domain. Moreover, it had belonged to the Flower of Seven Sins. The Soul Orb had become famous due to its ability to place a player in a state of extreme serenity by sacrificing other players' souls. The affected player's brain activity would also increase, which would, in turn, help one learn combat techniques, improve skill completion rates, or even become a master or grandmaster lifestyle player much more easily. This Soul Orb was far more effective than a high mana density environment. As a result, When the various superpowers wanted to nurture a particular genius, they traded with the Flower of Seven Sins. The Flower of Seven Sins was also more than willing to trade. After all, just by using the souls a few players contributed, they could obtain a large amount of resources and excellent weapons and equipment. In the past, Xueqi had heard that, to nurture Alice the Witch of the West, the Miracle Guild had traded a fragmented legendary with the Flower of Seven Sins. Currently, based on Brute Spear's description and the demon god's appearance, Xueqi was 80% certain that Brute Spear had the soul orb in his possession currently. In God's domain, aside from basic attributes, skills, and items, combat techniques also affected a player's combat power. The soul orb was a treasure that could allow players to learn and master combat techniques quickly. Thinking up to this point, Xueqi looked at Brute Spear and said, "Don't even think about it. We won't agree to your condition." Xueqi's sudden rejection stupefied everyone. Passing Monarch gaped at Xueqi. He could not fathom why Xueqi would say such a thing. Was there really a need to fight Brute Spear and the others? "That means you want to die, then?" Brute Spear's expression immediately darkened. Suddenly, the surrounding atmosphere became extraordinarily heavy, and Passing Monarch and the other Freedom Alliance members struggled to breathe. "Do you think you can kill us without paying a price?" Xueqi asked. Before anyone realized it, 2 magic scrolls appeared in his hands. These magic scrolls were none other than the Tier 3 magic scrolls he had obtained from the Sea Serpent King. One was a Tier 3 defensive magic scroll, while the other was a Tier 3 large-scale destruction magic scroll. Tier 3 scrolls. Brute Spear's complexion turned ugly when he saw the 2 scrolls in Xueqi's hands. Chapter 1200. Sin of Pride. Chapter 1200. Sin of Pride. Tier 3 magic scrolls were extremely rare in God's domain. It was nearly impossible to find one on the market. Even if one went to a large guild to purchase Tier 3 magic scrolls, they would need to a close relationship with the buyer and rare items to offer in exchange. Meanwhile, Brute Spear recognized both of Xueqi's magic scrolls. One of them contained a Tier 3 large-scale destruction magic scroll, and when this scroll was activated, even demon players like himself, with high HP and defense, would die instantly. The second was a Tier 3 defensive magic scroll, and it was currently acknowledged as the best life-saving scroll in God's domain. As long as the Tier 3 defensive magic scroll was activated, current players would be helpless against it. Even a Tier 4 large-scale destruction spell could not break a Tier 3 defensive spell. Even Tier 4 mythic monsters could not break the defensive spell. If Xueqi activated this magic scroll, they really wouldn't be able to do anything to Xueqi and his group as they left Demon Island. This was not an outcome Brute Spear wished to see. "Are you really willing to part with 2 Tier 3 magic scrolls?" Brute Spear glared at Xueqi. He hadn't expected Xueqi's group to possess such a trump card. If possible, he wanted to kill Xueqi before the latter could activate the magic scrolls. However, he had already discovered Xueqi's standard as a peak expert. Even a domain realm expert couldn't stop Xueqi from activating those scrolls. However, whether it was the large-scale destruction magic scroll or defensive magic scroll, both were extremely rare, valuable items at this stage of the game. He refused to believe that Xueqi would part with them so easily. "What's there to be reluctant about?" Xueqi laughed. "Now that Demon Island has transformed, once we return, we can sell this information to various superpowers. I'm sure that they'll be more than willing to compensate us for our losses." Hearing Xueqi's words, Brute Spear and his companions' expressions twisted. They wanted nothing more than to rip Xueqi apart. Currently, they still had plenty of matters to deal with on Demon Island, and it would take some time before they finished. If the other superpowers learned about Demon Island, a war would erupt. If that happened, other superpowers might snatch some of the items they were searching for. This was definitely not an outcome they wished to see. "I'll admit that you're pretty smart. Say it then. What do you want?" Brute Spear growled as he suppressed his bubbling rage. Hearing this, the corners of Xueqi's lips raised as he said unhurriedly, "Since it's a competition, we have to even the odds. Your conditions are simply too one-sided. If we win, we only get to leave safely, yet if we lose we have to contribute a portion of our souls, suffering a weakened state for a long period. If you really want a match, do it fairly. Since we have to contribute our souls if we lose," shouldn't you offer something as well? The items the demon god had bestowed were different from monster drops. There was no 2-hour waiting time to take ownership. Unless the items had a setting that made it so that they would drop upon death, even if he killed Brute's spear, there was no guarantee that he could get the items from the man's bag. Even if something did drop, it was unlikely that it would be the soul orb he wanted. In the past, many superpowers had sought the soul orb and had employed many means, both honest and not, to obtain it. However, no matter what they tried, they had failed to obtain the soul orb and had no choice but to trade valuable treasures with the Flower of Seven Sins. Contribute items? Brute's spear glared at Xueqi. Unfortunately, he currently had no means of dealing with the swordsman. On the contrary, Xueqi held his weakness, Demon Island, in his palm. Fine. If you guys win, I'll give you all a piece of level 45 dark gold equipment. However, you have to reduce my HP to 50% to win. You may choose whichever of the two options. Hearing Brute Spear's words, everyone present could not help but admire Xueqi. This was especially true for the 5 Flower of Seven Sins members beside Brute Spear. If not for Xueqi being their enemy, they might even applaud the man. The fact that Xueqi had convinced Brute Spear to take a step back, albeit at a very small one, was an amazing feat in and of itself. After all, in the Flower of Seven Sins, Brute Spear was a member of the Sin of Pride. If Xueqi chose the first option and competed for no reward, Xueqi's group would only need to lower Brute Spear's HP by 20%. As for the second option, while there was a reward, they would have to reduce Brute Spear's HP by half. The difference was obvious. If Xueqi's group wanted to win, they would definitely choose the first option. In the end, nothing would change. So are you saying that, if we decimate all of your HP, you'll give us an epic item? Xueqi asked, smiling. You really are a greedy bastard. Do you think you guys are worth one epic item? Brute Spear said in disdain. While level 45 dark gold equipment is tempting, do you think I would lack something like that? Xueqi said, chuckling as he exposed the Angry Tyrant Bracer's glow effect. Immediately, the Angry Tyrant's epic rank glow stunned everyone present. Previously, Xueqi had hidden the glow effects of his weapons and equipment, making it very difficult to determine his item's quality unless one had done their research into God's domain's various materials. Obviously, nobody present could determine his item's quality. Otherwise, they would have been astounded. Epic equipment. Passing Monarch was taken aback when he noticed Xueqi's bracers. Even the Freedom Alliance only possessed a few pieces of epic equipment. It was unbelievable that a lone player like Xueqi possessed a piece as well. It seems I really have underestimated you. When Brute Spear looked at Xueqi's Angry Tyrant, greed flashed in his eyes. Epic equipment was even rare in super guilds. Super guilds had far fewer epic items than peak experts. Only peak experts that performed exceedingly well were assigned epic equipment. Even Brute Spear only wore 2 pieces of epic equipment. He had received one of them from the Flower of Seven Sins, while he had just obtained the other from the Demon God's quest. He did not have any epic bracers. If he could obtain them, they would undoubtedly increase his basic attributes. If you want to do it that way, we'll do it fairly. If I bet an epic item, then you guys have to bet an epic item as well, Brute Spear said, sneering. It was obviously not possible to steal Xueqi's epic bracers. Even if he killed Xueqi, the swordsman would drop random items. The chance of obtaining those epic bracers was simply too low. If he wanted, he had to gamble. If you lose, you only need to hand over 1 epic item. Yet if we lose, we need to offer our souls and an epic item. You call that fair? Xueqi smirked. If you wish for absolute fairness, fine. You and me, one-on-one. Brute Spear said. If you win, I'll give you a top-tier epic item. A top-tier epic item? Xueqi's expression twisted into one of contempt. He then publicized Angry Tyrant's attributes for everyone to see. If you can offer a better piece of epic equipment better than mine, I'll consider it. If not, no deal. Chapter 1201. Tier 2 Class. Under. Chapter 1201. Tier 2 Class. Initially, the Flower of Seven Sins members were about to blow up in rage at Xueqi for looking down on them. However, when they saw Angry Tyrant's attributes, They were all stupefied. How is this possible? Aren't these attributes too overpowered? Everyone present was surprised by Angry Tyrant's attributes. Although the bracers did not possess any active skills, their 2 passive skills were practically tailored for berserkers. An increase of 20% in strength and 30% in attack speed when the wearer's HP was below 50%. Just thinking about this gave everyone the shivers. Not to mention, there was also a certain chance for the wearer's strength to double when attacking. It was practically impossible for any other epic equipment to surpass the Angry Tyrant bracers. Angry Tyrant was definitely the best among epic equipment. Only equipment at the fragmented legendary rank and above would be better. When Brute Spear saw the bracer's attributes, he could no longer hide the greed in his eyes. He was a berserker. Moreover, he preferred strength-oriented equipment. In fact, every piece of equipment below epic rank that he had equipped right now focused on strength. Strength-oriented epic equipment was something he always dreamed of obtaining. However, just being able to obtain epic equipment was already plenty difficult. Wanting to get epic equipment that perfectly suited him was practically a dream. How could such excellent equipment for berserkers possibly fall into the hands of a swordsman? I must obtain it. Unfortunately for Brute Spear, although he wanted Angry Tyrant, just like Xueqi said, he indeed could not produce any top-tier epic equipment that was equal or superior to the bracers. No matter how he thought about it, he had only 2 items on hand that were worth more than Angry Tyrant. One was an item that the Flower of 7 Sins wanted, while the other was the epic rank tool Soul Orb. Eventually, Brute Spear gnashed his teeth as he said, "Do you think I can't take out something of even higher value? I have an epic tool here. It is definitely more valuable than your Angry Tyrant bracers. If you can defeat me, I wouldn't mind gifting this epic tool to you." Epic tools were generally more valuable than epic weapons and equipment because epic tools did not take up a player's equipment slots. Players could use an epic tool even if it was in their bag space. Hence, the price of epic tools was generally double that of epic equipment, more if it was an epic tool with good attributes. An epic tool? Xueqi feigned hesitation as he said so. Inwardly, however, he was extremely excited. All right, let's sign a contract. He had deliberately exposed Angry Tyrant's attributes precisely to bait Brute Spear. Now he had succeeded. As for whether the tool Brute Spear would wager was the Soul Orb or not, Xueqi was 100% sure that it was. Epic equipment was already quite rare. The chances of Brute Spear obtaining 2 epic tools at this stage of the game were lower than winning the lottery. Brother Yifeng, is there really a need to do this? Passing Monarch was bewildered as he watched Xueqi sign a contract with Brute Spear. Originally, if their whole group fought against Brute Spear, they'd had over a 70% chance of winning. Now, however, Xueqi was going up against Brute Spear in a one-on-one. Even if Xueqi was very powerful, in Passing Monarch's opinion, Xueqi would be lucky to have even a 30% chance of victory. After all, Xueqi had already used his Berserk skill. Meanwhile, Xueqi was actually gambling epic equipment on such low odds. This was simply insane. Ha ha ha. That fool really signed a contract. Boss Brute sure is lucky. Not only did he obtain an epic tool from completing the quest this time, but he is even going to get a pair of excellent bracers for berserkers. That's right. I wonder what kind of expression that person will reveal when they see the strength Boss Brute reveals. With the addition of these epic bracers, Boss Brute will have 3 pieces of epic equipment in total. He will definitely become our Sin of Pride's #1 berserker with this. Brute Spear's several companions began a hushed discussion among themselves as they looked at Xueqi. They all considered Xueqi extremely foolish to gift away such excellent equipment. As a peak expert, Xueqi indeed possessed the qualifications to be prideful. However, Brute Spear was similarly a peak expert. In their opinion, if it were before Brute Spear had completed his quest, he would have had roughly a 60% chance of winning. The reason for this bullish evaluation was Brute Spear having been a high demon. After he transformed, both his main attribute and physique would receive a 20% improvement. If both sides were almost equal in attributes and combat standards, a 20% improvement to physique would allow Brute Spear to achieve an overwhelming victory. The only way Xueqi could make up for this difference was through activating a Berserk skill. However, as far as they knew, Xueqi had already used his Berserk skill and wouldn't be able to use it again within a short period. This doomed Xueqi to a lower chance of winning. Meanwhile, now that Brute Spear had completed his quest, his strength had received another considerable improvement. Even if Xueqi's combat standard was above Brute Spear still had a 90% chance of victory. With the contract signed, both sides distanced themselves and provided Xueqi and Brute Spear with sufficient space for a duel. As the duel timer began counting down, Brute Spear retrieved the crimson spear slung on his back and slammed the spear's butt on the ground, causing an earth tremor. As thanks for gifting me the angry tyrant bracers, I'll let you have the honor of witnessing my full strength, Brute Spear sneered. Originally, I intended to reserve this strength for competing against Bart for the position of #1 berserker in the group. Saying so, Brute Spear let out a low shout as his entire body began releasing scorching hot, pitch-black smoke. This pitch-black smoke quickly wrapped around Brute Spear's entire body. In the next moment, the berserker began transforming. In the blink of an eye, he had become a demon. However, unlike the black-clad ranger from before, Brute Spear's demon form had 3 sets of wings. The aura he radiated was also much stronger than the black-clad ranger's. There was absolutely no comparison. We're doomed. After seeing Brute Spear's demon form, the last strand of hope passing Monarch clung to vanished entirely. At this moment, Brute Spear's companions likewise had shocked expressions on their faces, having all received a fright from Brute Spear's transformation. This is an ennobled demon? Amazing! High demons simply cannot compare. With this transformation, Boss Brute will no doubt become the #1 berserker in our Sin of Pride in the future. After demon players transformed into demons, they would still have ranks, which was also the reason why demon players were half a tier stronger than ordinary players. When players first demonized, they would start out as low demons. Afterwards, they could promote to high demons through hunting for a large number of player souls. However, further promotions after reaching the high demon rank depended on more than just harvesting sufficient souls. One also needed to possess the corresponding status. In other words, attaining nobility. Meanwhile, after Brute Spear completed his quest on Demon Island, he had gotten promoted from a high demon directly to a baron. As a result, his strength had also undergone a qualitative improvement. Ha ha ha! So this is the power of a baron demon? Truly amazing! At this moment, Brute Spear could not help but revel in this newfound power of his. Baron-ranked demon players received a 30% increase to both their attributes and physique when transformed. Currently, both his attributes and his body's physique were already at the Tier 2 standard. The only thing he lacked now was Tier 2 skills. Aside from that, he could already be considered a Tier 2 player. The disparity between Tier 2 and Tier 1 classes was much greater than that between Tier 1 and Tier 0 classes. If a Tier 2 class fought against a Tier 1 class, even without using any skills and under a situation where both sides were at the same level, the Tier 1 class would be powerless to resist. After Brute Spear stretched his body a little, his blood-red eyes shifted to the swordsman before him. All right, I'll let you have a taste of despair now. Chapter 1202. Hidden Ability. Under Chapter 1202. Hidden Ability. When the duel timer came to an end, Brute Spear walked at a measured pace towards Xueqi. It was as if he was strolling casually through a park right now. He did not take this duel seriously whatsoever. As expected of a quest that could prompt the demon god to emerge, it instantly promoted a high demon to the baron rank. Xueqi unsheathed the abyssal blade and killing ray, his expression turning serious as he looked at the approaching berserker. Even after 10 years had passed, demon players that managed to reach the baron rank had still been uncommon, with the majority stuck at the high demon rank. If one wanted to get promoted further, they needed to get the acknowledgement of the demon god or upper-class demons and have them willingly share a portion of their power. However, upper-class demons and the demon god were allowed to bestow their power on only a limited number of people. As a result, the number of demon players that could become nobility was extremely low. Currently, Brute Spear, who was level 45, already possessed 240,000 HP. On the other hand, even after reaching level 50, Xueqi's HP was just slightly over 42,000. The disparity was nearly 6-fold. Moreover, Baron demons possessed much higher defense and magic resistance than high demons. Even ordinary Tier 2 expert players would find it hard to kill the current Brute Spear, Not to mention that there was not a single Tier 2 player in God's domain yet. When Brute's spear was only 12 yards away, Xueqi abruptly stomped on the ground, leaving behind an afterimage in his original position as he dashed straight at the berserker. So fast! The 5 Flower of 7 Sins members spectating from the side were astonished when they saw Xueqi appearing before Brute's spear in the blink of an eye. Xueqi was definitely the fastest swordsman they had ever seen. If it were them fighting against Xueqi right now, they would be caught off guard if they were not careful. Moreover, Xueqi's movements and judgment were also considerably acute. Unlike berserkers that used great swords or battle axes, berserkers that used spears had a longer attack range. Their spears could reach roughly 2 yards farther than the other weapons. The optimum attack range for a spear-wielding berserker was between 4 and 8 yards. Meanwhile, a swordsman that used a long sword had an optimum attack range between 1 and 3 yards. Although their sword auras could reach up to 5 yards, enemies that were standing within 4 to 5 yards could easily dodge such an attack by retreating 1 or 2 yards. If a longsword-wielding swordsman wanted to suppress a spear-wielding berserker, the best way to do so was to close in and move within 1 to 3 yards of the latter. This way, the berserker could not utilize the spear to its fullest potential. Conversely, if Xueqi allowed Brute's spear to gradually approach him, then before he even reached his attack range, Brute's spear would have already begun attacking, a considerably disadvantageous situation to Xueqi. Hence, taking the initiative to attack to launch a fast attack was an extremely wise decision. You have quick reactions. I'll give you that. Unfortunately, you met me. Brute's spear was indeed surprised by Xueqi's speed and judgment. However, while others might have difficulty keeping up with Xueqi's speed, he could see the swordsman's movements perfectly. Moreover, due to his improved physique, he had a much clearer grasp of his surroundings. Right now, he could perceive everything within a 20-yard radius. In fact, the instant Xueqi prepared to take action, he already knew what Xueqi would do. Whirlwind Slash. Having long since anticipated Xueqi's attack, Brute's spear swept the spear in his hand horizontally, his move capable of dealing a serious blow to all enemies within a 10-yard radius. An explosion rang out in the air as he swung the crimson spear, the spear moving so fast that it became invisible to the naked eye. Meanwhile, Xueqi was currently still 6 yards away from Brute's spear. By the time he could start attacking Brute's spear, the berserker's spear would have long since landed on him. Although the spear was weaker than the great sword and battle axe when it came to raw power, it was superior in terms of speed. Pang! Spear and sword collided, the impact forcing Xueqi to take a few steps back. What a high skill completion rate! Xueqi was slightly astonished as he looked at Brute's spear, who remained unaffected by the impact. If speaking purely in terms of the strength attribute, he should surpass Brute's spear even after the latter transformed. After all, there was a 5-level gap between them. Moreover, the quality of his weapons and equipment was also far superior to that of Brute's spears. Nonetheless, he still got repulsed in the end. The only explanation for such a situation occurring was Brute's spear's skill completion rate. When a player's skill completion rate reached a certain percentage, the skills they used would generate some additional effects. For example, when the Berserker class's Whirlwind Slash achieved a completion rate of 99% or above, aside from having greater destructive power, the skill would also come with a knockback effect. A skill completion rate of 99%. This was a completion rate that Xueqi could only occasionally achieve when both his body and mind were in an excellent state. Despite that, the Berserker before him was able to achieve this feat casually. Is this a hidden ability of a demon noble? Xueqi did not believe that Brute's spear himself was capable of achieving such a high completion rate. After all, the Berserker had just been promoted to a Baron Demon. After transforming, the bonus attributes he received should be much higher than when he was just a high demon. He should have great difficulty properly controlling this newfound strength immediately. He would need some time to adapt. Hence, the only explanation was that this high completion rate was a hidden ability of a demon noble. In the past, Xueqi had never gotten the opportunity to fight against a demon noble. Or to put it in another way, he had not possessed the qualifications to do so. As a result, he had only a little information on demon players. As for the hidden abilities of demon nobles, there hadn't been any fools that revealed such a secret. No wonder Chen Su said that you're powerful. Your strength attribute is actually so high. Looking at his still trembling spear, Brute's spear could not help but turn to look at Xueqi. After this brief exchange, he grew even more fond of the bracers on Shifeng's arms. Even after transforming into a demon, he was still weaker than Shifeng in terms of strength. If he were fighting against any other swordsman right now, such a situation would have been impossible. The only explanation for this was Shifeng's weapons and equipment. After saying so, Brute Spear directly used charge at Shifeng, the spear in his hand stabbing at Shifeng's heart. When Brute Spear used charge, he became like a shooting star. He was not only extremely fast but also exerted powerful pressure on Shifeng. However, this pressure didn't come from Brute Spear himself. Instead, it was a deterrent effect that appeared when charge's completion rate reached 99% or above. This hidden effect reduced his opponent's reaction speed by 20% and movement speed and attack speed by 40% for 1 second. When Brute Spear got to within 6 yards of Shifeng, the crimson spear in his hand suddenly transformed into a streak of red light. Boss Brute is finally using his trademark move, an assassin familiar with Brute Spear said, chuckling. This was a combination technique Brute Spear used to gain fame for himself in the Flower of Seven Sins, merging a combat technique with a system skill to exert even more power. Lightning Speed. Originally, charge had already allowed Brute Spear's Crimson Spear to move at a frighteningly fast speed. Then, during the time he was using charge, he would transfer the power of his entire body to his spear, applying additional acceleration the instant it was about to reach its target. This speed made the attack practically impossible to dodge or block. Pang! At the critical moment, Shifeng activated Carriage. When the Crimson Spear came into contact with his swords, Shifeng instantly felt both his arms go numb. His entire person also was forced to retreat 6 steps before he managed to stabilize himself. He blocked it? Brute Spear was astounded right now. Just how high is his agility? The lightning speed he executed this time was the most perfect one so far. Logically, after including the suppression effect of his charge, Shifeng should not have been capable of executing parry at all. Since it is so, let's see if your reaction speed or my attack speed is faster. Saying so, Brute Spear flapped the wings on his back and began hovering in midair. His body then split into 3, and all 3 attacked Shifeng simultaneously from different directions. The skill he had used was called Demon Flash, something he had learned after becoming a Baron Demon. It allowed him to attack his opponent from 3 directions, and each clone mirrored his original body perfectly. There was also no need for him to control his mirror images as they would carry out the same actions as he did. During the attack, he and his clones would also gain an enormous movement speed boost. Overall, it was a skill many times more powerful than charge. Chapter 1203. Difference between trump cards. Under. Chapter 1203. Difference between trump cards. After Brute Spear used Demon Flash, he and his mirror images moved faster than when he used charge. The surrounding spectators could barely see the 3 berserkers after images, much less their real bodies. Is this his true strength? Passing Monarch was deeply shocked when he saw this scene. It was no wonder Brute Spear was so confident before. With that kind of speed and destructive power, even if all of them went at him together, they would be fortunate to land an attack on him, much less shave away 1/5 of his HP. So fast. Although Shifeng's physique had improved a lot after reaching level 50, in the end, he had yet to obtain his Tier 2 class, which would provide a massive boost to his physique. At this moment, his eyes could no longer keep up with Brute Spear's speed. He could only rely on the changes in his surroundings to determine Brute Spear's movements. You should consider yourself fortunate to fall to this move of mine. Brute Spear executed lightning speed on Shifeng once more. Compared to the time he attacked with charge, the speed of his spear this time had increased by a large margin. Moreover, his 2 clones had also attacked using the same strength and speed. If attacked at such a speed and from 3 different angles, even a Domain Realm Assassin expert would not be able to evade properly. Dang! 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 However, just as the 3 Crimson Spears were about to reach Shifeng, they abruptly stopped in their paths, unable to proceed even an inch farther due to Shifeng activating the swordsman class's strongest life-saving skill, Defensive Blade. Brute Spear was not particularly surprised by this situation. After all, the swordsman class's life-saving skills were only second to the assassin classes. Now that he had forced Shifeng to use both life-saving skills consecutively, he would have a much easier time dealing with the swordsman. So what if you blocked them? Brute Spear sneered. In a single breath, he rapidly jabbed 5 times with his spear, targeting Xueqi's blind spots. Meanwhile, his 2 mirror images had also launched identical attacks. Demon Flash did not just allow him to launch a charging attack on his target. The clones conjured lasted 5 seconds, during which, they would carry out the same actions as the main body. Moreover, they also possessed the exact same attributes as the main body. Overall, Demon Flash was a skill meant to counter defensive skills that could block multiple attacks. As a result, a total of 15 spears struck at Xueqi from 3 different directions, and extremely fast. Even Xueqi failed to keep up with all 15 spears. Meanwhile, these 15 spear attacks had already exceeded the number of attacks defensive blade could block. Sure enough, a Baron Demon really is difficult to handle. Xueqi finally understood why demon nobles were so difficult to kill. In the past, when he saw certain experts on the God's Domain experts list successfully killing a demon noble, he had thought nothing of it. Now, however, it would seem that killing a demon noble of the same tier was a very difficult task. Xueqi immediately activated Killing Ray's additional skill, Summon Lightning. Boom! In the next moment, arcs of blue lightning shot down from the sky one after another. Not only did these lightning arcs deal 400% lightning damage to all enemies within a 15-yard radius to Xueqi, but they could also inflict a numb effect for 5 seconds on the target struck. Afterwards, his attack range would even increase by 20 yards for 30 seconds. However, Brute Spear simply sneered at this attack. He did not bother dodging the lightning arcs at all as he abruptly stabbed his spear at Xueqi. He intended to compete and see who could deal more damage. While the 15 spears struck at Xueqi, the lightning arcs also bombarded Brute Spear's body. The block count of Xueqi's defensive blade was instantly exhausted. As for the several spear strikes that got through, Xueqi used his swords to deflect them, so he did not receive any substantial damage. In contrast, Brute Spear had over -13,000 damage from the lightning strikes. What high magic resistance! Envy sprouted in Xueqi's heart when he saw this damage. If a normal level 45 player received this move of his, they would either die instantly or have very little HP remaining. However, a Baron Demon's high magic resistance had greatly reduced the damage Brute Spear received. Brute Spear had over 240,000 HP. By relying on battle recovery alone, he could recover over 2,400 HP every 5 seconds. In addition, Summon Lightning's numb effect was ineffective against the Berserker. As Summon Lightning ended, Brute Spear launched 5 spear strikes once more. This time, however, Xueqi no longer possessed defensive blade to protect himself. What a pitiful bastard! He actually dared to challenge Boss Brute to a duel. He might have had a fighting chance if he had his Berserk skill. Unfortunately, he's already used it against Chen Su. However, Boss Brute is also amazing. I feel that the skills he used all have very high completion rates. When the 5 Flower of 7 Sins members saw this scene, they all knew that this fight was as good as over. Originally, Brute Spear already possessed a huge advantage in HP and defense. Now, he was even using an attack method that trumped all defenses. If Xueqi wished to deal damage to Brute Spear, he would have no choice but to clash head-on as well. However, Brute Spear still had 2 clones assisting him. It was simply impossible for a melee player like Xueqi to stop Brute Spear. From this scene, Xueqi also understood what was going through Brute Spear's mind. However, he also had to admit that this was a good plan, as he really did not possess any method of coping with it. Xueqi used silent steps right away and appeared behind Brute Spear. He then pointed the abyssal blade at the Berserker. Abyssal Bind. Immediately, black chains materialized in empty space one after another, every one of them shooting straight at Brute Spear. Seeing this, Brute Spear sneered as he activated a control removal skill without hesitation, causing Abyssal Bind to lose effect. He then charged at Xueqi and launched another barrage of attacks together with his mirror images. You want to compete using HP? Xueqi smiled. Come then. Saying so, Xueqi activated Phantom Kill and 9 Dragon Slash. Although his doppelganger only possessed 80% of his basic attributes, which made it slightly weaker than Brute Spear, it should have no problems holding off one of the Berserker's mirror images. Meanwhile, the 12 Abyssal Blade Phantoms summoned by 9 Dragon Slash could also easily stop the other mirror image. This way, the duel would revert to a one-on-one fight. At this time, Xueqi activated Thunder God's Descent, increasing his movement speed and attack speed by 150%, damage by 50%, and decreasing the damage he received by 50% for 30 seconds. Without hesitation, he charged straight at Brute Spear and executed Sword's Orbit. Starlight suddenly filled Xueqi's surroundings. However, Brute Spear paid no attention to this phenomenon whatsoever as he used all his strength to send out multiple spear strikes. Immediately, both sides' HP began falling continuously, the rate of decline giving the surrounding spectators a fright. How is this possible? The 5 Flower of 7 Sins members were dumbfounded as they looked at Brute Spear's plummeting HP. At this moment, Brute Spear was losing over 10,000 HP with each attack he received, 20,000 HP with a critical hit. On the other hand, although Xueqi was similarly losing HP, he was only losing around 3,000 HP with each attack he received. Moreover, the rate at which his HP fell was much slower than Brute Spear's. For each time Xueqi's HP fell, Brute Spear's HP would fall 2 or 3 times. After just 2 seconds of exchanging hits, Brute Spear had less than 70,000 HP remaining, down to less than 1/3 of his HP. On the other hand, although they could not see the exact value of Xueqi's HP due to him having hidden it with his black cloak, the HP bar revealed above his head showed that he had lost only 1/3 of his total HP so far. The difference between the two sides was obvious at a glance. However, despite this situation, Brute Spear himself remained unfazed. Just when Brute Spear's HP fell below the 30,000 threshold, a sinister smile appeared on his face. Backtrack! Brute Spear roared. Immediately, a blood-red magic array appeared in the air. A red light then shone out of the magic array, enveloping a radius of 30 yards around Brute Spear. This was the strongest skill Brute Spear obtained after becoming a Baron Demon. Blood Backtrack. As long as he was not dead, the skill would allow him to regain the HP he had 6 seconds before. This was the reason why he dared to exchange damage with Xueqi. In the next moment, Brute Spear's HP directly recovered to full. In contrast, Xueqi had less than half of his HP right now. Despicable! He can actually recover his HP. Passing Monarch could not help but curse out loud when he saw this scene. Brute Spear simply sent a contemptuous glance at Passing Monarch. Sure enough, he really does have a trump card hidden. Xueqi was not particularly surprised by this scene. In reality, he also knew about Blood Backtrack. This was a move that all demon nobles knew. Even monsters like great demons had used it frequently since it was a skill specifically used to trap others. Hence, he also held back a trump card. Suddenly, the 2 swords in Xueqi's hands released a blinding light. Flame Burst. Sword's Orbit. One sword light after another flew at Brute Spear. A sure kill skill? Remaining unfazed, Brute Spear activated the additional skill of his epic equipment, Magic Shield, which reduced the damage he received by 30% for 10 seconds. He promptly brandished his spear to deflect the oncoming sword lights. Although Brute Spear failed to deflect all the attacks, with his body's extraordinary physique, he still managed to deflect the majority of them. In the end, he got struck only 3 times. However, these 3 hits shocked him as each one actually took over 60,000 HP from him. In just 3 blows, he had lost over 180,000 HP. When Flame Burst ended and Brute Spear was preparing to counterattack, Xueqi activated Dragon Breath. Dragon Breath was an AoE skill that was impossible to block. Moreover, it dealt much more damage than even Flame Burst. Instantly, Dragon Breath devoured Brute Spear's remaining HP. At the same time, Xueqi emerged the victor of this duel. Chapter 1204, Treasure Secured. Chapter 1204, Treasure Secured. After the duel was over, Brute Spear had a look of horror on his face as he looked at Xueqi. How could he have such a high explosive power? Brute Spear could not at all believe that he had just lost. He was a Baron Demon. He also had 2 pieces of epic equipment equipped. He himself was a peak expert in God's domain. With his 240,000 plus HP, even if he just stood still and did nothing, it would take a berserker the same level quite some time to kill him, yet he had been killed almost instantly. How could he possibly accept this loss? Nonetheless, there was no way the duel result announced by the system could be fake. It was also an inescapable fact that he only had 1 HP remaining right now. Unlike the duels in arenas, the system would leave players with 1 HP when they were defeated in a duel held in the fields, preventing them from dying. The match is over. You can hand over that epic item of yours now, Xueqi said as he looked at Brute's spear, who currently had a dazed expression on his face. Although Brute's spear possessed the transformation bonuses of a Baron Demon, the difference in levels and equipment between the two of them was simply too massive. It was not something a single demon transformation could offset. Powerful weapons and equipment not only improved a player's basic attributes but also strengthened a player's skills. Just who are you? Brute's spear asked after taking a deep breath. Anyone capable of steamrolling right over me can't be someone unknown. In terms of HP and defense, he indeed possessed an absolute advantage. However, Xueqi was leaps and bounds above him in skills and other basic attributes. Meanwhile, needless to say, the reason for Xueqi's advantage in attributes was definitely the swordsman's weapons and equipment. Any player that could surpass a player like himself in terms of weapons and equipment could not be an ordinary expert. Most likely, Xueqi was a peak expert from a superpower. Moreover, far from just any ordinary peak expert, Xueqi was no doubt a peak expert heavily nurtured by his guild. What? Want to take revenge on me? Not willing to accept defeat? Xueqi asked. That's only one part of the reason. Brute's spear nodded in acknowledgement. The other part is that I don't want to lose without even knowing whom I lost to. He had indeed thought of taking revenge on Xueqi. After all, the reason he lost this time was not due to techniques, but rather weapons, equipment, and skills. This result greatly frustrated him. He was actually killed instantly by 2 sure kill skills. If news about this spread, he would definitely become a laughingstock. After giving the matter some thought, Xueqi walked up to Brute's spear and said quietly, "Fine, I can give you a chance. You can call me Frost Eye. In any case, this is a name others have given me. If you wish to have a rematch, then you must wager epic equipment at the very least, just like this time. As for the venue of the match, let's set it at the imperial capital of the Fire Dragon Empire. Once you're ready, you just need to spread the message in the Fire Dragon Empire. When the time comes, I'll naturally find out." "You're Frost Eye? The #1 person on the bounty list?" Brute's spear's heart began racing when he heard this and stared incredulously at Xueqi. Frost Eye was very famous in God's domain. After all, Frost Eye had managed to enter the main headquarters of the Super Guild King's Return and kill Hell Fiend all by himself, then escape with his life. This incident had long since become a legend in God's domain. Even now, King's Return was still hunting Frost Eye. Moreover, the bounty the guild had placed on Frost Eye had increased from the initial 20,000 gold to the current 50,000 gold. King's Return was even offering a reward of several hundred gold to anyone that could provide some clues leading to Frost Eye. This incident had also prompted the various superpowers in God's domain to search for Frost Eye, because of Frost Eye's ability to enter places with heavy security like the Divine Colosseum and pull off an assassination. Since Frost Eye had killed an expert like Hellfiend, he was naturally capable of killing other guild upper echelons as well, perhaps even the guild leaders of superpowers. A guild leader's assassination would deal a massive blow to the guild's reputation. Hence, the various superpowers in God's domain were searching for Frost Eye. The Flower of Seven Sins was no exception. As an organization that dealt in assassination work, if the Flower of Seven Sins could recruit such an expert, its fame would undoubtedly rise significantly. That's right. Since you already have the answer to your question, you can give me my item now, right? Xueqi nodded. It seems I have not lost in vain. At this moment, a trace of admiration flashed across Brute's spear's eyes as he looked at Xueqi. He then took out the soul orb from his bag and passed it to him. In reality, Brute's spear did not place any particular importance on the soul orb. After all, epic items like the soul orb were not particularly rare. Practically every superpower possessed 1 or 2 of such items. Take the epic tool the Dark Arena had auctioned for example. The tool could be used to brew magic wine that had a calming effect when consumed. The calming effect was similar to when a player was in a high mana density environment. The soul orb was similar to that epic tool. However, unlike the magic wine, which required rare materials to brew, The soul orb needed players to willingly offer up a portion of their souls to produce soul water. Moreover, the souls of 100 players were needed to produce 1 drop of soul water. Rather than doing something as tedious as collecting souls, gathering raw materials would be much faster. Hence, Brute Spear felt that the soul orb was somewhat useless. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used it as a wager. Soul Orb, Epic Rank Item. An orb crafted by demon god Paimon using the fragments of a destroyed powerful soul treasure. Additional active skill dash. Soul Water. Creates soul water from the souls willingly contributed by players. No cooldown. Every 100 souls of players absorbed will produce 1 drop of soul water. Currently, this item has been sealed by demon god Paimon. Item will drop upon death. Those without the power of demons are unable to use this item. If you're not interested in this epic item, I can use 7,000 gold to buy it back, Brute Spear said, grinning as he looked at Xueqi. Although items like the soul orb were indeed rare in God's domain, there were still a few of them, which usually sold for around 20,000 to 30,000 gold. However, since only demon players could use the soul orb, its value was much lower. For someone like Xueqi, who was not a demon player, even if he obtained the soul orb, he would not be able to use it. In other words, it was no different from a piece of junk. At the end of the day, it is still an epic item. Keeping it as a decoration isn't a bad idea, either. Although a surprised expression had indeed appeared on Xueqi's face after he read the soul orb's attributes, he still stored the item away. He then turned around and left. The corners of Brute Spear's mouth twitched involuntarily when he heard Xueqi's words. Most likely, only the number 1 person on the bounty list could say something like using an epic item as decoration. As for preventing Xueqi and the others from leaving, Brute Spear did not think he and his companions had this ability. If Xueqi was capable of leaving King's Return's main headquarters unscathed back then, it would be child's play to get away from the 6 of them. Following which, Xueqi led Passing Monarch and the others away from Demon Island. Brute Spear and the others had failed to notice that the reason for Xueqi's surprised expression was not the fact that only demon players could use the soul orb. After all, this was something Xueqi had long since known. Instead, he was surprised because the instant he touched the soul orb, the golden stigmata on him had reacted. Chapter 1205. Kingdom Transformation. Under Chapter 1205. Kingdom Transformation. The golden stigmata was originally a tool for Xueqi to search for the 7 treasures. Previously, when he went to Lakeheart City, a clue relating to one of the 7 treasures had appeared. However, the signal had been brief, disappearing after a moment. Fortunately, he had already gotten a lock on the NPC wielding that treasure. Only, as Countess Katie Green was too powerful for Xueqi right now, he did not want to alert the NPC any more than he already had. Since entering God's domain, Xueqi had already been to quite a few places. However, he had managed to find only 1 clue relating to the 7 treasures so far. Despite that, the instant he touched the soul orb, it had actually triggered a reaction from the golden stigmata. How could he not get excited over this? This was also the reason behind Xueqi's decision to give up on entering Demon Island for now and return to White River City first. After all, the soul orb was an item that dropped upon death. The ancient ruins on Demon Island were extremely dangerous. With the demon god's aura causing the monsters on the island to go berserk, the risk of death was simply too high right now. It was much better if he returned to White River City for the time being. Following which, Xueqi said his goodbyes to Passing Monarch and agreed to meet up with him tomorrow at the sea's end. Meanwhile on Demon Island, the black-clad ranger Chen Su, who had just met up with Brute Spear's group, nearly had his eyes fall out of their sockets when he saw Brute Spear sending off Xueqi and the others. "Boss Brute, are you letting them go just like that?" Chen Su could not believe this was true. "We lost a lot of men to them. As demons, they lost 3 levels each time they died. Just the number of Flower of 7 Sins members killed by Xueqi alone numbered over 70. If their superiors were to find out about this, they would no doubt receive severe punishment. After all, turning ordinary players into demons was not an easy task." "We can only consider ourselves unlucky this time," Brute Spear replied. "Boss Brute, even you weren't able to defeat them?" Chen Su asked in shock. Brute Spear was a peak expert in the Flower of Seven Sins. Moreover, every one of the 5 others in the Berserkers party was stronger than Chen Su. They should be more than capable of dealing with Shifeng, whose berserk skill was on cooldown. Moreover, Brute Spear had already been ennobled into a Baron Demon. In terms of overall strength, he could already be considered a Tier 2 player. How could he possibly not be a match for Shifeng? Brute Spear turned around and asked, "Do you know who that peak expert is?" Chen Su shook his head in response. Shifeng had been wearing a black cloak the entire time. Hence, Chen Su had failed to discern any information about the swordsman. Pinpointing his identity through his class was also impossible. After all, there were just too many swordsman experts in God's domain. Not to mention, many of the swordsman experts that entered God's domain were not that famous. "He is Frost Eye." Brute Spear smiled bitterly. "What? That's the guy the higher-ups have been searching for all this time?" Chen Su could not help his surprise. Ordinary players might not be familiar with Frost Eye, but he was a famous existence among the superpowers of God's domain. Even the old monsters of the Flower of Seven Sins had praised him endlessly, wishing to recruit him into the organization. No wonder he was so strong. When Chen Su recalled the scene where Shifeng had instantly killed Hammer and the others, he found the idea plausible. After all, Frost Eye was someone capable of assassinating the upper echelon of a super guild right in the middle of the guild's main headquarters and even getting away safely. It would be a piece of cake for someone like that to kill experts of Hammer's standards. All right, go inform the higher-ups. Tell them that I already have a way to make contact with Frost Eye. Also, send in a detailed report regarding the previous battle. As for the matter regarding Demon Island, the rest of us will handle it, Brute Spear commanded. Starmoon Kingdom, White River Siege. After returning, Shifeng immediately noticed that the atmosphere within the city had become slightly tense. Those red players are simply too arrogant. They actually dare take action within NPC towns now. Thanks to that, the loot my team got from the boss we killed is all gone. Your team is simply too careless. However, after the new expansion pack was implemented, the dark guilds and red players have indeed become more proactive. Several other teams have likewise gotten ambushed and suffered severe losses. I wonder which bastard triggered this expansion pack. I heard that the other kingdoms and empires are in similar situations. New dark towns and cities have also been popping up one after another throughout God's domain, allowing red players to exchange for many nice items there. Exchange items? That's right. Although the exchange rates are very fraudulent, requiring 3 secret silver weapons to exchange for 1 secret silver weapon or equipment of the same level, the exchanged weapons and equipment are more suited to oneself. Some normal players have even begun commissioning dark guilds and red players to help exchange items for them now. Isn't that awesome? Our team has many weapons and equipment we can't use. Rather than sell them for money, it will be much better to exchange for items that are more appropriate for us. Do you really think it's that easy? So far, the only place that has such an exchange center in Starmoon Kingdom is Evernight City as the only dark NPC city within the kingdom. Those who aren't red or dark players are prohibited entry. Moreover, if you want to exchange for high-ranking weapons and equipment, you'll need to have enough reputation with the city as well as fulfill certain conditions. Ordinary red players can exchange for bronze weapons and equipment at best. I heard that only dark players can exchange for secret silver weapons and equipment. It seems we'll have to be more careful in the future. Now that these dark guilds and red players have such a convenient source for items, they will surely become more proactive in the future. That's right. Currently, some NPC towns are no longer safe from red players. I don't know what kind of item those red players have managed to get, but they're actually able to evade detection by NPC guards for a short time. Unless they're standing very near an NPC guard, the latter won't sense them at all. Many independent teams and players were discussing the recent expansion pack and its consequences in the open-air bar of White River City's teleportation hall, and they were unanimous in hating the new expansion pack. Initially, the range of activity of dark players was not particularly large. After the implementation of the new expansion pack, however, new dark towns appeared in the vicinity of the various NPC cities. Moreover, these dark towns were all very powerful. The NPCs ruling them were usually above level 100. Existences that current players couldn't go up against. As a result, this situation immediately expanded the range of activities of dark players significantly. They've begun moving already? Xueqi had never imagined that these dark players would take action so quickly. While the Demon Gods Disturbance expansion pack was indeed a blessing to dark players and somewhat of a disadvantage to ordinary adventurer players, it wasn't as though the expansion pack was a pure liability to adventurer players. Adventurer players similarly had a way to benefit from this expansion pack: crusades. Along with the rise of the dark forces, many dark NPCs that had previously hidden themselves would become active. As these NPCs were considered enemies of normal players could kill them without suffering any repercussions. As long as players managed to kill these NPCs, aside from being able to obtain weapons and equipment just like the loot from a boss, there was also a certain chance for these NPCs to drop 7 Luminaries crystals, an extremely valuable item to both players and NPCs. Unlike field bosses, some powerful NPCs would collect 7 Luminaries crystals. This source of 7 Luminaries crystals could also be considered the greatest reward to normal players from this new expansion pack. After Xueqi was done eavesdropping on the conversations of other players, he returned to the candlelight trading firm and entered a special forging room before carefully taking out the soul orb. Please don't disappoint me. Xueqi then activated Omniscient Eyes on the soul orb. Omniscient Eyes was one of the 2 active skills of the Golden Stigmata, and it allowed one to see through everything and discover certain things that were not visible on the surface. Chapter 1206. Treasure Fragment. Under. Chapter 1206. Treasure Fragment. Star Moon City. Due to the Demon Gods disturbance, Star Moon City's player population exploded. The majority of these newcomers were former inhabitants of the nearby towns. With the rise of the dark forces, the surrounding NPC towns were no longer safe. The safest locations right now for normal players were NPC cities. This development also prompted many adventurer teams, which were originally active in NPC towns, to move their main base of operations to NPC cities. Consequently, the prices of land in NPC cities also increased as a result of competition among many adventurer teams. This was especially true for land in the outskirts of Star Moon City. Although the land of a capital city was much more expensive than the land of other cities, the capital city was also much safer and more convenient. Moreover, Star Moon City was the closest NPC city to Evernight City, the sole city controlled by the dark forces in Star Moon Kingdom. This proximity also drew many hidden dark players to Star Moon City. Players couldn't teleport to Evernight City. Dark players were no exception to this. If players wished to visit the city, they could only do so on foot. Meanwhile, Star Moon City was undeniably the best place to stay for convenience in exchanging for items. For a time, the situation within Star Moon City became very complicated. Meanwhile, inside Heaven's Burial's residence, a meeting of the highest order was currently being held. Fog, how are the contacts on your side? Singular Burial asked as he looked at the female elementalist standing beside him. Those dark guilds have already agreed to our conditions. When the time comes, we just need to exchange some of the weapons and equipment we don't need for those rare tools in Evernight City. At the same time, they've also agreed to secretly kill the players that visit Stone Forest Town, Daybreak Fog said, giggling softly. Although the new expansion pack had driven the rise of the dark forces, only minor powers like small guilds, adventurer teams, and independent players were actually affected. Large guilds like Heaven's Burial were entirely unaffected by this situation. After all, if the various dark guilds wished to thrive in Star Moon City, they would have to gain the permission of Heaven's Burial. Excellent. Now that we have the support of these dark guilds, we'll have a much easier time hindering Stone Forest Town's development. Fog, you'll be responsible for handling our relationship with the dark guilds in the future, Singular Burial said with a nod. He then turned to look at the cleric Flame Blood and asked, how are preparations coming along on Abandoned Wave's side? Guild leader, rest assured, I've already covertly leaked information that a secret land has been discovered over at that place. Many strong adventurer teams and small guilds have already begun taking action. Afterwards, if we release additional fake news about finding treasure there, even more players should head over to their deaths. It won't be long before we hit the number Abandoned Wave needs. Moreover, due to this new expansion pack, the dark forces have already killed a large number of players. Thus, we won't attract any suspicions even if many players die, Flame Blood explained. However, if we supply so many players to Abandoned Wave, what if he turns his sword against us, once he is done dealing with Zero Wing. You don't have to worry about this point. We've already signed a contract. He won't dare go back on his word. Besides, the more sacrifices we supply Abandoned Wave, the more returns we'll obtain from Evernight City. As long as we help Abandoned Wave achieve his target requirement, Heaven's Burial will become the first guild to reside in Evernight City. By then, we'll be unstoppable. Singular Burial laughed nonchalantly at Flameblood's worries. He was helping Abandoned Wave because he stood to kill two birds with one stone. The first was weakening Zero Wing. Once Abandoned Wave was done dealing with Zero Wing, even if Heaven's Burial could not become Star Moon Kingdom's #1 guild, it could still occupy half of the entire kingdom. The second was the position in Evernight City. As the only city belonging to the dark forces in Star Moon Kingdom, Evernight City offered simply too many benefits. Heaven's Burial could already make a hefty profit just by reselling the items bought or exchanged for there. Currently, the majority of the players in God's domain were under the impression that only dark players could enter Evernight City. In reality though, that was not true. As long as one attained a certain status within the city, they could even purchase land to construct a guild residence in Evernight City. Only, achieving this status was tough. However, Abandoned Wave just so happened to provide the guild with a good way to do so. Once Heaven's Burial entered Evernight City, they could begin reselling the city's rarities. Meanwhile, although the various dark guilds could also exchange for plenty of rare items, at the end of the day, dark guilds were shady existences that few ordinary people wished to do business with. Not to mention, dark guilds thrived on killing players. If one did not possess a certain degree of strength, who would dare to trade with dark players? As a result, the number of channels they could sell their rare items through was limited. However, Heaven's Burial was different. Needless to say, players would prefer to trade with Heaven's Burial over the various dark guilds. In addition, dark guilds were usually of relatively small size, so how could they possibly compete with Heaven's Burial? As for the threat of the Blackwater Guild, there was no need to worry about that. The guild had already officially withdrawn from Star Moon Kingdom not long ago, and diverted its attention towards the various empires of God's domain. After all, the Blackwater Corporation was extremely ambitious. Abandoned Wave was but one of the corporation's many pawns. Abandoned Wave's current actions were simply his final struggle. If he succeeded, he might regain the Blackwater Corporation's trust and be put to use elsewhere. If he failed, he would definitely be discarded. In either case, the outcome would not affect Heaven's Burial. Hence, Heaven's Burial's operation this time would only reap benefits. At the same time as Heaven's Burial was holding a meeting, an earth-shattering incident was also taking place in the distant White River City's candlelight trading firm. What a powerful aura! Xueqi had a look of astonishment on his face as he looked at the floating soul orb. Currently, the soul orb was emitting frightening pressure. This aura was similar to what he felt from Demon God Paimon on Demon Island. However, while the aura Demon God Paimon released back then had indeed been frightening, it had also been calm. On the other hand, the aura released by the soul orb was berserk, as the soul orb contained a holy aura aside from Demon God Paimon's aura. Meanwhile, these two auras were currently in conflict, making it seem as if two gods were fighting each other right now. At this moment, the entire special forging room was already a mess. Even the magically strengthened walls cracked at the might of the two divine auras. The strength of these two auras exceeded the special forging room's suppressive ability. As a result, the auras had leaked outside, paralyzing everyone within the candlelight trading firm. What's going on? Why can't I move? This aura! Could there be a monster inside the trading firm? The lifestyle players that had been toiling in their respective workshops were all frightened. This was definitely their first time to encounter such a situation. Just sensing the two divine auras made their souls shudder in fear. Xueqi did not doubt that the clash between these two auras would have caused a tremendous commotion in White River City if not for Candlelight Trading Firm being a 3-star shop. This was also the reason why he had chosen to appraise the soul orb there. After a short moment, the two clashing auras finally weakened and eventually reached a balance. As a result, half of the soul orb turned black and the other half, white. Meanwhile, the divine might the orb was exuding right now gave even Xueqi, who was level 50, difficulty in moving his body. Wonderful! It really is a treasure fragment. Xueqi revealed a look of ecstasy when he took a look at the soul orb's attributes once again. Chapter 1207. Treasure of Illusion. Under. Chapter 1207. Treasure of Illusion. An indescribable excitement filled Xueqi as he held the soul orb. The 7 treasures were bona fide godly relics. Mere legendary items could not compare to these. Not even ancient gods would necessarily possess a godly relic, much less mortal humans. In the past, Xueqi had never even heard of a player owning a godly relic. Of course, it was possible that someone had obtained a godly relic but had hidden the fact. After all, news of something like this would cause a huge commotion throughout the game if it got out. Hence, in the eyes of god-ranked experts, legendary items were already considered godly relics. After all, legendary items were already capable of enabling players to challenge opponents of a higher tier. If a god-ranked expert really got their hands on a godly relic, the outcome would be simply mind-boggling. Although the 7 treasures were neither weapons nor equipment, they were still powerful enough to suppress Dark Abyss. However, now that Xueqi thought about it, he found the idea reasonable. The soul water the soul orb produced helped players reach an unprecedented serenity and mental clarity. This was no longer something achievable by simply raising an area's mana density. How could an epic item possibly possess such an amazing ability? Only a godly relic could produce something so unbelievable. Soul Orb, Epic Rank Item. Originally a fragment of the Treasure of Illusion. However, due to being refined by demon god Paimon, the fragment's true power has been sealed. Additional active skill dash. Soul Water. Creates soul water from the souls willingly contributed by players. No cooldown. Every 100 souls of players absorbed will produce 1 drop of soul water. Additional active skill 2 dash. Divine Power Absorption. Absorb divine power to recover the soul orb itself. There are a total of 3 seals. The removal of the first seal requires 10 god crystals. Current absorbed number 0. Currently, although the soul orb has been sealed by demon god Paimon, it has been awakened by the golden stigmata. The seal can be removed by absorbing divine power. Item will drop upon death. Demonic power will devour non-stigmata bearers. Not long after Xueqi began to celebrate, the sound of a system notification reached his ears. System. Demon god Paimon has discovered the soul orb's awakening and has issued a recovery order to all Dark Force players. If more than 3 yards separate the soul orb and the stigmata, it will be teleported back to Paimon's hands. Must the system be so serious? Xueqi was speechless when he heard the system notification. This system announcement had declared that the soul orb could not leave his person. He had to carry it with him constantly. However, the soul orb dropped upon death. If he died, the orb would return to demon god Paimon. The recovery order was also a vicious threat. Since it was a recovery order, Dark players would definitely be given a special method to find the soul orb. In other words, as long as he was outside of an NPC city, his chances of encountering a Dark player ambush were quite high. He was at a huge disadvantage. He had prioritized secrecy when moving about to prevent others from discovering his intentions. Unfortunately, the soul orb was a beacon for trouble, yet if he didn't hold on to it, he would lose the treasure fragment. Do I really have to head to the War God's temple? Xueqi felt a headache brewing. The War God's temple had tasked him with collecting the 7 treasures. While he might be able to complete his quest by handing them over, he would lose the ability to use the treasures for himself. Those were the 7 treasures they were talking about. Although they were neither weapons nor equipment, they possessed abilities that no epic or legendary item could compete with. Simply handing the treasures over after obtaining them wouldn't be worth his time. As Xueqi tried to plan his next move, Aqua Rose contacted him. Guild leader, Phoenix Rain has arrived with her people. She hopes to use the secret tablet right now, Aqua Rose said anxiously. However, we haven't decided who to send yet. Should we have them wait for a little bit longer? She's here already? Xueqi could not help his surprise. The dark auction had only ended a short time ago, yet Phoenix Rain was already here. Tell her that I have some issues to deal with for now and that I'll need to have her wait 3 hours. Also, gather Summer, Violet, Rain, and Ueru. You 5 will enter the tablet first. The secret spellcasting technique was a massive boost to magical class players. Although Zero Wing had quite a few magical class experts, people with great potential like Aqua Rose would have priority for learning the technique. Only before these 5 entered the tablet, he needed to prepare. Now that the soul orb had changed, he had to put it to good use, stockpiling as much soul water as possible, before handing it over to the war god's temple. Understood. Aqua Rose nodded happily when she heard that she had received a slot as well. If she entered the tablet, she might be able to join the ranks of Zero Wings Refinement Realm experts. After Aqua Rose disconnected the call, Xueqi considered contacting Melancholic Smile to gather a group of the Candlelight Trading Firm's ordinary lifestyle players, particularly the firm's reserve members. As long as these players were willing to part with a fraction of their souls, they would receive an official member's benefits for 5 days. The Candlelight Trading Firm was the #1 trading firm in Star Moon Kingdom. The benefits one could enjoy in Candlelight could not be found in any other trading firm in the kingdom. Hence, a large number of players wanted to join Candlelight every day. However, not everyone could become an official member. Only those with potential could become reserve members. After becoming a reserve member, players still needed to pass Candlelight's test to become an official member. Meanwhile, reserve members did not receive any particularly valuable benefits. They were only slightly better off than certain independent lifestyle players. Even so, droves of lifestyle players wanted to join. Furthermore, EXP was secondary to lifestyle players. Not being able to kill monsters wouldn't affect them in any way, and the weakened state only lasted 4 or 5 days. There should be plenty of reserve members who were willing to accept his offer. How could I have forgotten about Charlene? Xueqi suddenly remembered the Tier 5 Red official Charlene. Charlene had both extraordinary strength and status. She had even scared away the mysterious youth that had used a super spell. That mysterious youth had dared to steal the golden tablet right in the middle of Blackwing City. Even Tier 5 players were likely no match for him. Moreover, Charlene knew a lot about God's domain. She might have some method to help him keep the soul orb. Let's give it a try. If it isn't possible, it won't be too late to trade it for a reward in the war god's temple after I've stockpiled some soul water. Thinking up to this point, Xueqi contacted Melancholic Smile and had her collect the required members. This way, once he returned from the library, she should have gathered enough people. Although Xueqi wanted more sacrifices, the Flower of 7 Sins already knew about his acquisition of the soul orb. If he tempted fate, the Flower of 7 Sins would connect him with Frost Eye. In other words, they would learn that Frost Eye was a member of Zero Wing. If this news reached King's Return, the consequences would be unimaginable. If that happened, King's Return would do everything in its power to annihilate Zero Wing. After all, the guild's reputation was at stake. Hence, he needed to maintain a low profile while collecting souls. Moreover, he needed to do it quickly. The longer he held the soul orb, the closer the Flower of 7 Sins would come to discovering his identity. After all, the demon god Paimon had already issued a recovery order for the orb. If it were discovered on one of Zero Wing's members, the result would still be the same. Following which, Xueqi snuck out of the Candlelight Trading Firm and rode an advanced carriage to the library. Chapter 1208. Dark Sanctuary. Chapter 1208. Dark Sanctuary. On the foggy demon island, Brute Spear directed the Flower of 7 Sins members to carry away blood-red broken pillars secretly. These broken stone pillars radiated a faint divine might, and aside from the mana directly around the pillars, they attracted all nearby mana, increasing the density significantly. The smaller stone pillars were roughly 3 meters long. A single berserker could barely carry one. The larger pillars were 7 to 8 meters high, and transporting one required several players. These blood-red pillars littered the demon altar. Hurry up! We need to move these before the other powers discover this place. Brute Spear commanded. If Xueqi were present, he would instantly recognize these blood-red pillars. In the past, these pillars had been used to form the magic array that had protected the Flower of 7 Sin City. This magic array was known as the Dark Sanctuary. Under the cover of the Dark Sanctuary, the mana density within the enveloped area would reach heights that even the Tower of 4 Elements could not compete with. However, this wasn't the Dark Sanctuary's greatest purpose. Rather, it was its ability to help players grow. Players could fight system-generated copies of themselves in the Dark Sanctuary's core as long as they spent enough magic crystals. Moreover, their copies could execute skills at 100% completion rate. Fighting such an opponent would help players realize their flaws and improve rapidly within a short period. Due to this magic array, countless experts had tried to join the Flower of Seven Sins. Only, the magic array Brute Spear and the others had just secured was damaged. It could not be used right away. Even so, just by gathering the blood-red pillars in a location, they could increase the area's mana density. As Brute Spear and the others transported the stone pillars, the Flower of Seven Sins members received a system notification. System: Demon God Paimon has issued a recovery order for the Soul Orb. Anyone who kills the Soul Orb's wielder will receive a bountiful reward from Demon God Paimon. You will need to pay 500 magic crystals to accept this quest. Do you wish to accept this quest? This quest is valid long-term. It can be accepted at any time and does not have a time limit. The Soul Orb? Brute Spear was shocked when he heard this system notification. Isn't that the item Frost I took from me? The demon god Paimon had bestowed the Soul Orb to him as a treasure. Brute Spear had never thought that this treasure would be this important. Brute Spear suddenly regretted his decision to wager the orb. Boss Brute, doesn't Frost I have the Soul Orb? This is interesting. The demon god's reward will certainly be impressive. Many players will accept this quest. Frost I is in for a lot of trouble now. That's not possible, right? After all, that's Frost I we're talking about. Killing him is easier said than done. Boss Brute, should we accept this quest? We know that Frost I has the Soul Orb. We have an advantage over the other groups. That's right. Even if we can't get it, those from the Sin of Wrath and Sin of Greed will try for it. After all, there are a few among them who are close to becoming barren demons. The demon god's bountiful reward sorely tempted the Flower of Seven Sins members. They might get ennobled after completing the quest. Even if they didn't, they would still gain a significant amount of reputation, allowing them to reach the Baron rank more easily. This was a very rare opportunity for demon players. Let's not accept the quest for now. We should tell Big Sis about this first. We'll let her decide what we should do, Brute Spear said after giving the matter some thought. The others nodded in agreement. At the same time, the various dark forces in God's domain began to take action. A bountiful reward from the demon god. Just who is the unlucky fellow that provoked the demon god? Anyways, this is good news to us. Both the various dark guilds and the independent dark players accepted the demon god Paimon's quest without hesitation. Dark players had access to fewer quests than normal players. As a result, it was extremely difficult for dark players to raise their reputation with the dark forces. They would likely earn a ton of reputation points by completing this quest, let alone the potential reward from the demon god. Elsewhere, Shurfeng arrived at the library of White River City. More players crowded the building than during his previous visits. Many magical class players were practicing their spells in the main hall, and some were even learning from the NPC instructors to improve their spellcasting accuracy. Unlike physical classes, magical class players needed a considerable amount of training to hit monsters with their spells. This was especially true after so many God's Domain evolutions. Players that had recently joined God's Domain would have a very difficult time fighting even common monsters. Hence, they needed to practice a lot more to improve themselves. Although the various starting towns had their own combat instructor NPCs, the combat basics these NPCs taught were only useful to newcomers. If one wanted to grow more powerful, they had to enter a city. Physical class players could find their instructors in the War God's Temple. As for magical class players, their combat instructors were in the city's library. These locations were the easiest places for ordinary players to enter and train. After all, locations such as the Divine Colosseum cost magic crystals. This was a price that ordinary players could not afford. This was especially true for players that had just joined God's Domain. Hence, ordinary players often visited both the War God's Temple and the library. If players wished to receive guidance from a senior instructor, they had to pay 1 silver per hour, whereas a junior instructor only cost 30 copper per hour. Even ordinary players could afford this. Hence, most ordinary players came here to train at night while spending the day in the fields engaged in battle. By doing so, They could grow stronger faster than simply fighting monsters all day. Zero Wing's members were far better off. As Zero Wing now had a 3-star guild residence, it had its own training room. Not only could the training room teach players to utilize their skills and spells, but it also taught players basic combat techniques. Neither the library nor the War God's Temple offered as much. After entering the library, Xueqi headed to the top floor. The guards have grown stronger again? Xueqi was slightly surprised when he saw the 2 black armored knights guarding the Star Moon Hall's entrance. Every time he visited the Star Moon Hall, the knights were stronger than before. Originally, the guards had only been level 180, Tier 3 knights. Now they were level 210 Tier 3 knights. Even level 180, Tier 4 NPCs would have trouble dealing with these knights. After all, the higher one's level was, the more attributes one received with each level up. A gap of 30 levels at such a high level was no trivial matter. These 2 Tier 3 knights did not block Xueqi's path into the Star Moon Hall. Rather, they opened the doors when Xueqi came within 10 yards as if they had been instructed to do so. Seated on the throne in the middle of the hall was a golden-haired, saint-like woman. When this saintly woman saw Xueqi, the corners of her lips curled up slightly. After some time apart, you seem to have collected a lot more treasures and coins. Chapter 1209, Promotion Quest. Under Chapter 1209, Promotion Quest. Currently, Charlene wore a set of exquisite, red-white robes. Although Xueqi did not know exactly what rank the robes were, they added a hint of divinity and charm to her appearance. They also exuded a fierce divine might. Divine might. Not just any random weapon or piece of equipment possessed this kind of power. It needed to be an item once worn by a god. Moreover, the item must have absorbed some of said god's power to radiate divine might. Legendary mage robes? Xueqi guessed. Take the 7 treasures for example. As gods had created these items personally, they exuded divine might. The fact that Charlene's robes radiated divine might proved that they were extraordinary. Most legendary items in God's domain did not exude divine might. However, when Xueqi saw the faint smile on Charlene's face after hearing her comment, he shuddered involuntarily. Only now did he recall that Charlene possessed a very high-rank identification skill that could even observe the contents of a player's bag space. He currently had more than 10,000 gold on him. Why are you giving me that look? Do you think I covet your 15,739 gold coins? Contempt laced Charlene's words as she spoke. After so much time, you sure have a lot more secrets. You've even gotten your hands on a treasure fragment. I wonder how angry demon god Paimon is right now. After all, he spent hundreds of years to seal that orb. Xueqi's heart began to pound. The War God's Temple had been searching for the 7 treasures constantly, yet based on Charlene's tone, it seemed as if she had known the Treasure of Illusion's whereabouts all along. Do you think I'm working for the War God's Temple? Charlene said as if she had read Xueqi's thoughts. Chuckling, she said, You've sought me out to find a way to prevent Paimon from taking the treasure fragment back, right? Unfortunately, I have no way of shielding the fragment from Paimon's detection. Is there really no way? Xueqi sighed dejectedly. If he couldn't hide the soul orb from demon god Paimon, then he would have no choice but to hand the item over to the War God's Temple. Even a demon god couldn't reach the orb inside the War God's Temple. However, simply handing the orb over would be a huge waste. I never said there wasn't a way. If the treasure absorbs a sufficient amount of divine power, you can remove Paimon's seal. Even Paimon won't be able to do anything about it. If you wish to keep the treasure fragment, you should find more god crystals quickly. There is nothing else anyone can do to help you. After all, we are only mortal. We have no hope of resisting gods, Charlene explained. God crystals. Xueqi smiled bitterly. He wanted to obtain a lot of god crystals. After all, he had many items that needed divine power to evolve. However, god crystals were extremely rare, even rarer epic items. Obtaining a single god crystal was extremely difficult, yet removing the first seal on the soul orb required 10 crystals. Where was he supposed to find so many god crystals? As if she had predicted Xueqi's concerns, Charlene giggled and said, "Others might have a hard time finding god crystals, but for you, it shouldn't be a difficult task." "Not difficult for me? Why?" Xueqi asked curiously. 5,000 gold consultation fee, Charlene demanded, smiling as she stretched out her hand. Xueqi rolled his eyes at the woman, inwardly cursing her for being black-hearted. However, he still handed over the 5,000 gold consultation fee. God crystals were of utmost importance. Unfortunately, he had yet to discover any clues about their whereabouts. After receiving the 5,000 gold, Charlene's smile became all the more charming. "It's very simple, actually. Don't you have that ancient document on you? As long as you ask the ancient document, you'll find clues regarding god crystals." Charlene waved her hand, and in the next instant, the ancient document in Xueqi's bag appeared before him. Of course, this is only one of the clues you can use to find god crystals. The other one is the most important. Now that you've reached level 50, you can consider your Tier 2 promotion quest. I suggest you complete it as soon as possible as you don't have much time left. Initially, Xueqi wanted to curse at the woman. Of course, he knew that the ancient document possessed such an ability. After all, he had bought it from the dark auction. However, the ancient document would only provide a clue to one god crystal. He needed 10 for the soul orb. Moreover, he had a greater purpose for the ancient document. It would be wasteful to use it to find god crystals. "What does my Tier 2 promotion have to do with god crystals?" Xueqi asked. He simply needed to complete a quest for his Tier 2 promotion. Meanwhile, the gods themselves had used god crystals. The two were not related in the least. "Have you forgotten that you own of one of the 10 great saint legacies?" Charlene smiled as she took out an ancient book. She then explained, "This ancient book contains records of the 10 great saint legacies. Every time you complete a promotion quest, you'll be sent into a different space. The ancient gods had left these spaces behind. Gods would have certainly stored items there. Hence for you, it isn't a particularly difficult task to obtain god crystals." Hearing Charlene saying so, Xueqi thought back to the eternal courtyard he had visited in the Origin Sword domain. An ancient god had indeed once lived there. Moreover, he had discovered the Holy Grail in that space. However, as his strength had been limited then, he had been restricted to certain areas. Just surviving and completing his quest had been extremely difficult. He had only obtained the god crystal due to luck. As Charlene had said, the sooner he completed his Tier 2 promotion, the better. This way, he would have more time to focus on other things. Once he had his Tier 2 class, he could explore new areas and find new treasures. "Lady Charlene, may I know how I should go about completing my promotion?" Xueqi asked. Previously, he had completed his class change with the assistance of a legacy item. However, his legacy item had disappeared. If he had a normal class, he could simply go to the library or War God's temple and seek out a high-tiered instructor for his Tier 2 promotion. However, hidden classes didn't have that option. They needed legacy items to show the way. "I can send you there. I charged you a friendship price the last time. This time, it will cost you 10,000 gold and an additional 188 mana stones," Charlene said, stretching out her hand as she revealed an expression that stated, "You should be thankful I am offering such a low price." When Xueqi heard this, he very much wished to say, "Why don't you go rob a bank or something?" Others only needed to pay 50 gold for their Tier 2 promotion, yet his required 10,000 gold and 188 mana stones. Even if he had the Philosopher's Stone, he still needed 9,400 magic crystals to synthesize that many mana stones. If an independent player stood in his place, they wouldn't even be able to afford their Tier 2 promotion after reaching level 100. "I am giving you a great deal here. If you went to find someone else to assist you, they'll have to be a Tier 5 magical class, and you'd need 3 of them. Hiring 3 such existences will cost you a fortune. On the other hand, I'm only charging 10,000 gold, Charlene explained. All right then. However, I don't have that many mana stones on hand right now, and I need to prepare. When Xueqi heard that he needed 3 Tier 5 magical class NPCs to help him, he understood that this promotion quest of his was nothing ordinary. Most likely, only an NPC like Charlene could help him. Any other NPC with the required strength would be incredibly rare. Following which, Xueqi left the library, rushing back to the candlelight trading firm. On his way, Melancholic smile contacted him, an excited expression on her face as she said, "Guild leader, good news. Abyss has successfully constructed the first advanced transport carriage." Chapter 1210. Modified Advanced Transport Carriage. Chapter 1210. Modified Advanced Transport Carriage. He's done already? Xueqi grew ecstatic when he heard Melancholic Smile's report. Advanced transport carriages were not that easy to construct. Even with all the required materials, it was possible that certain parts wouldn't meet the system standards, which would result in failure during the final assembly. These faulty parts would need to be remade, and the carriage would have to be reassembled. These various processes were extremely taxing in both time and energy. However, as long as the advanced transport carriages were complete, they would massively assist Stone Forest Town's development. Stone Forest Town's reconstruction was already complete. However, the transport carriages, the key to unlocking the intermediate town's true potential, were still missing. Although it was possible to rent ordinary carriages from NPCs, those carriages could hold up to 4 players at a time. Moreover, the rental price was relatively high. The amount of time one could save with these carriages was also minimal as their speed was on par with common mounts. If ordinary players were asked to spend 40 copper just to save 5 hours, they would likely choose to walk the entire way. Hence, for the moment, Xueqi had set the fee for using the rented carriages at 30 copper per player. With this, he may not make a profit, but he wouldn't lose money either. If they could have a fleet of advanced transport carriages now, they could solve many problems. First, the speed of an advanced transport carriage was on par with a mysterious iron mount. Second, it was capable of carrying up to 20 players at a time. With these two factors, they would make quite an income by just offering players transportation. Furthermore, advanced transport carriages could carry cargo. An advanced transport carriage could carry up to 60 non-bag space items. In player towns, a wandering NPC merchant stock depended on the town's transportation services. This was because the majority of a wandering merchant's goods were non-bag space items. The more non-bag space items a town could transport, the more rare items wandering merchants would bring to said town. Moreover, more wandering merchants would visit. This was considered a hidden benefit. This hidden benefit had only been discovered after many guilds had established their own advanced towns or basic cities in the past. When the news spread, the various guilds regretted not establishing a transportation system early on. Otherwise, they would have attracted far more players with the wandering NPC merchants. Moreover, as a town or city attracted more wandering merchants, it would unlock another hidden benefit: a mystery shop. The mystery shop mainly sold mystery treasure chests. As its name suggested, one had a random chance of obtaining all sorts of items from the mystery treasure chests such as potions, weapons, equipment, magic scrolls, food, beverages, and far more. If one were lucky, they could even obtain dark gold weapons and equipment. It had been very popular among players. However, while the mystery shop had an unlimited number of mystery treasure chests in stock, players could only purchase 5 mystery treasure chests per day at most. Each treasure chest sold for 2 silver coins. After players purchased a certain number of mystery treasure chests from the mystery shop, they could become members of the shop. By then, players could enter the shop's second floor, competing for a limited number of up-to-date and rare weapons, equipment, and tools. Even the most inferior among these items was secret silver rank, and players had often found fine gold items. While very rare, dark gold items would also appear from time to time. After reaching level 50, it would become very difficult to obtain high-quality weapons and equipment. Obtaining level 50 plus secret silver equipment would be as challenging as finding current dark gold equipment. Hence, getting to compete for up-to-date fine gold weapons and equipment every day was a huge opportunity for most players. This opportunity did not require players to have superb combat techniques. As long as one had enough coins, they could purchase the items they desired. Players had swarmed to any town or city with mystery shop. Back then, even merchant players had used these mystery shops to make a fortune, traveling to the various towns and cities to compete for these items, then reselling them elsewhere for a profit. After all, players rarely sold their level 50 plus fine gold weapons and equipment. Upon arriving at the Candlelight trading firm, Xueqi hurried to Burning Abyss's workshop. Guild leader, what do you think of this advanced transport carriage? Melancholic smile asked as she gestured to the exquisite carriage in the workshop center. Unlike the horse carriages gliding down city streets, the advanced transport carriage was not pulled by a horse. Rather, it resembled the bronze engineering locomotive, a completely mechanized mode of transportation. Players could operate it simply by purchasing fuel from NPC shops. It was similar to taming mounts. Living mounts needed to be fed during fixed times. The higher a mount's rank was, the more expensive its food needed to be. Is this a modified version? After examining the transport carriage, he noticed that it was slightly different from the original design. Burning is an engineering genius. He modified it slightly using his research from Titan City, enhancing its performance slightly, melancholic smile explained. Advanced transport carriage, common rank. A creation of Master Engineer Burning Abyss. Maximum capacity 20 people. Durability 200/200. Item storage when liberated 8,000 bag space slots and 60 non-bag space slots. Additional skill dash. Mana combustion. Increase movement speed by 15% by absorbing the mana of player. Each minute consumes 1,500 mana. No cooldown. Amazing, Xueqi said, surprised. He had seen the mana combustion skill before. However, this skill generally only manifested on bronze rank or higher mechanical carriages or mounts. This was his first time seeing the skill on a common advanced horse carriage. With this 15% movement speed increase, the transport carriage would rival secret silver mounts. However, when Xueqi looked at this advanced transport carriage, he felt a little helpless. With the materials they had at hand, they could produce at most 2 advanced transport carriages. If they could mass-produce the transport carriage, the mystery shop might open in Stone Forest Town before it even became an advanced town. It would be great if we could find some replacement materials, Xueqi thought. Green ebony was even rarer than diamond wood. Moreover, it could only be found in extremely dangerous maps. Procuring a large quantity would be very difficult. Right. Green ebony only grows where normal ebony grows, and only a small minority of ebony in high mana density environments grow into the tougher, harder, and more mana-conductive green ebony. What if I use the Philosopher's Stone's elemental strengthening on normal ebony? Xueqi suddenly remembered the Philosopher's Stone. Aside from concocting potions, alchemy could convert and strengthen items. Green ebony was born from ebony. It was definitely worth giving the Philosopher's Stone a try. Ebony was not a particularly rare material in God's domain. One could even say that it was a very common type of wood. If he could transform ebony into green ebony, he could save himself plenty of trouble. Mass-producing the advanced transport carriage would no longer be a challenge. Thinking up to this point, Xueqi had melancholic smile retrieve some ebony from the candlelight trading firm's warehouse while he retrieved the Philosopher's Stone from his personal warehouse. Chapter 12:11. Soul Water. Under. Chapter 12:11. Soul Water. In the first-floor hall of the Candlelight Trading Firm. Due to the exotic stamina potion's recent launch, not only had the Candlelight Trading Firm become the most popular place in White River City, but it had also become a holy land for lifestyle players. Every day, a large number of lifestyle players visited the Candlelight Trading Firm to take its entry test. Among the kingdom's trading firms, the Candlelight Trading Firm employed the most lifestyle players. In addition, it was the only place that had the basic meditation room. Everyone had thought little of the basic meditation room when it had first appeared. However, shortly after, a large group of advanced lifestyle players had suddenly emerged in the Candlelight Trading Firm. Even if they didn't acknowledge that the basic meditation room had anything to do with it, it was difficult to deny the truth. How else would they explain the sudden addition of so many advanced lifestyle players in the Candlelight Trading Firm? Lifestyle players' status rose with each passing day. Advanced lifestyle players, in particular, enjoyed generous benefits. As long as one worked hard, their income could even rival that of expert players. They could easily live without having to worry about food and clothing. If they reached the master rank, Even owning a mansion and luxury cars were within reach. To become master lifestyle players, joining the Candlelight Trading Firm was undeniably the best option. So, this is the Candlelight Trading Firm? Seems like a pretty nice place. As a large group of independent lifestyle players lined up by the first-floor hall staircase, awaiting their turn to be tested, a female player in dark gray robes entered the trading firm and nonchalantly commented. This female player was none other than Silent Wonder, whom Xueqi had invited to work for the Candlelight Trading Firm. Silent Wonder's comment instantly attracted many lifestyle players' attention as they all turned to look at her. Very quickly, they noticed the Advanced Alchemist's insignia on Silent Wonder's chest. Moreover, her level was frighteningly high, at level 42. Not even many experts had such a high level. However, despite her level and alchemist rank, the waiting lifestyle players glared at her contemptuously. At this moment, an advanced enchanter close to Silent Wonder said, "You must have come here from another kingdom, right? If you wish to join the Candlelight Trading Firm, you need to queue up for the test. Even advanced classes need to take the test to join this place?" Silent Wonder asked the advanced enchanter standing in the long queue. The various guilds were all in desperate need of advanced lifestyle players. Practically every guild treated their advanced lifestyle players like their own children. If an advanced lifestyle player stated their intention to join a guild, plenty of guilds would welcome them with open arms, not force them to take a test. Of course. There are at least 5 advanced lifestyle players ahead of me right now, the advanced enchanter said as he rolled his eyes. This is the Candlelight Trading Firm. It isn't like your average guild. From I've heard, several advanced lifestyle players had failed Candlelight's test and had to retake it 3 times before they managed to pass. How is this possible? For a moment, Silent Wonder thought she had heard wrong. She suspected that the advanced enchanter before her was a prop the Candlelight Trading Firm had placed here to fool people. Those are advanced lifestyle players we're talking about. If even advanced lifestyle players needed to retake the test several times, how were basic and intermediate lifestyle players supposed to pass? It's true. This is already my 2nd time taking the test. Candlelight's testing is different from other guilds. They set different requirements depending on your rank. Only by achieving their requirement are you allowed to join. The only advantage advanced lifestyle players have is that we don't need to become reserve members. As long as we pass the test, we'll be accepted as official members instantly, the advanced enchanter explained. Silent Wonder fell silent for a moment. She could not understand what was going through these advanced lifestyle players' minds. If an advanced lifestyle player joined any other guild, becoming a core member would be trivial, yet based on the advanced enchanter's explanation, one would be lucky to become an official member of the Candlelight Trading Firm. Were all of these advanced lifestyle players somehow tricked to come here? Silent Wonder wondered about her agreement with Xueqi. Have you come all the way here without knowing anything? The advanced enchanter asked, surprised by Silent Wonder's behavior. In response, Silent Wonder nodded. No wonder. In Star Moon Kingdom and our several neighboring counties, the Candlelight Trading Firm is second to none in terms of the treatment and benefits it provides. Aside from its large number of special workshops, there are also the basic meditation rooms that can help advanced lifestyle players like us reach the master rank. I heard that Candlelight already has a master engineer. As long as we become Candlelight core members, we can seek guidance from that master engineer, the advanced enchanter explained. A master? How is this possible? Silent Wonder was stunned. She could not believe her ears. That was a master lifestyle player they were talking about. Even God's Domain's empires didn't have a master rank lifestyle player yet, much less a small kingdom like Star Moon Kingdom. After all, crossing that final threshold was not a simple thing. Yet, not only did the Candlelight Trading Firm have an excellent resource like the basic meditation room, but it also possessed a bona fide master leading it. Any advanced lifestyle player seeking to become a master would be more than eager to learn about a master's experience. So, he really wasn't lying. Silent Wonder suddenly thought back to Xueqi's words mentioning how her stay in the Candlelight Trading Firm after fulfilling her contract was an unknown. She had assumed that Xueqi wanted to provoke her. Now, however, it would seem that he had told the truth. After all, with the presence of a master lifestyle player and so many advanced lifestyle players seeking said master's guidance, the competition within the trading firm would be intense. So what? I refuse to submit. At the end of the month, You'll be begging me to stay. Silent Wonder's fighting spirit flared. She had relied on herself to grow from an apprentice into an advanced alchemist. She believed that, as long as she remained in Candlelight Trading Firm, it would be a trivial task to become the trading firm's chief alchemist. As Silent Wonder joined the queue to take the test, a large number of reserve members gathered in the fourth-floor hall. There were over 600 players present. Among these people, even the weakest were advanced apprentices, with the majority of them being basic or intermediate lifestyle players. In any other large guild, they would be official members at the very least. In the Candlelight Trading Firm, however, they were only reserve members. However, these reserve members were all very excited. As long as they signed a contract, they would become official members for 5 days. During these 5 days, not only could they receive guidance, but they could also utilize the trading firm's special workshops. Guild leader, due to time constraints, I have only gathered this many people for now. It will take some more time to gather the remaining players, Melancholic Smile said. This should be barely enough. If you have the time, try to expand the firm a little more. In any case, Candlelight will have to expand later on. Doing it a little early would be just as beneficial, Xueqi said as he glanced at the reserve members in the hall. The number of people here barely met his requirement. Currently, there wasn't enough ebony in White River City's Candlelight Trading Firm's warehouse. There were only 30 logs or so. It was hardly enough for his needs. They still needed to transfer their stockpile from the other shops. It just so happened that he could use this time to obtain some soul water. After all, Phoenix Rain was in quite a hurry, and it would not help him to delay them. Following which, Xueqi began absorbing the reserve members' souls. The absorption process was very simple. He didn't even need to take out the soul orb itself. A simple handshake and an agreement from the contributing party would do. One reserve member after another clicked agree when a window appeared, asking them to contribute a fraction of their souls. When the soul orb eventually gathered 100 souls, a drop of dazzling red water formed within. After a short moment, the soul orb absorbed 624 souls and formed 6 drops of soul water. All right. It's about time I meet Phoenix Rain. Xueqi smiled in satisfaction as he stored the 6 drops of soul water in 6 small bottles. Chapter 12:12. Respective Preparations. Under Chapter 12:12. Respective Preparations. In the Candlelight Trading Firm's 7th floor meeting room. As soon as Xueqi entered the meeting room, several gazes landed on him. The origin of these gazes was none other than Phoenix Rain's group, who had waited for quite some time now. This time, aside from Blue Phoenix, Phoenix Rain had brought 3 cloaked men. These men hid their levels, equipment, and in-game name. Although Xueqi could not see any information about these men, the fact that Phoenix Rain had chosen them to enter the secret technique tablet proved that their combat standards were extraordinary. Otherwise, Phoenix Rain wouldn't have wasted these precious legacy slots on them. So, these are Phoenix Rain's hidden cards. The Phoenix Pavilion sure has a powerful foundation. Xueqi was slightly surprised when he saw the 3 men. He was surprised due to the men's calm auras. They felt more like plants than humans. Moreover, under his observation and perception, he couldn't find any holes in their defenses. This was rare. After all, he could even spot 3 weak points on an expert like Blue Phoenix. There were only 2 kinds of people that could hide their weak points from him. The first was those who possessed a higher combat standard than he did, while the second was those who had experienced countless battles and had long since hammered out their weaknesses. Regardless of which type these 3 men were, they were extremely powerful experts. As Xueqi observed these 3 men, these men observed him. Once they completed their evaluation, they were astonished. Is he that Yifeng that Rain mentioned? He is even more powerful than Rain said. I never expected an upstart guild to possess such a young expert. Truly amazing. It's been a long time since I've seen a kid that felt dangerous. The 3 men chatted quietly as they looked at Xueqi. As they conversed, Blue Phoenix, who noticed this, smiled and said, Big Sis Rain, Yifeng seems to have shocked the elders. These men were not actually members of the Phoenix Pavilion. Instead, They were elders on the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's board of elders. Normally, they only listened to the Great Pavilion Master. Aside from extensive contributions to the guild, the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion required sufficient strength to join the board of elders. Otherwise, their subordinates wouldn't submit. However, although the guild elders only listened to the Great Pavilion Master, the Great Pavilion Master didn't have any right to manage their free time. Phoenix Rain had secured these three men's help for Thunder Island. Of course, the condition for their help was a slot to the secret spellcasting technique. Phoenix Rain simply smiled in response to the elders' reactions to Xueqi. While part of the reason she had brought these three elders here was to learn the secret spellcasting technique, another part was to rope them into her faction. After all, the contest over Thunder Island wasn't limited to a single event. The contest would repeat in the future, yet these men had only agreed to help once. In terms of overall strength, the Phoenix Pavilion and Heavenly Dragon Pavilion were about equal. Hence, both sides' chances of becoming the Great Pavilion Master were 50-50. As a result, the elders, who maintained a neutral stance in the guild, became prime recruitment targets. Not only did they possess great individual strength, but they also had significant influence within the guild. Every elder would massively boost their respective factions. Naturally, these elders understood that the future Great Pavilion Master would be one of the two current Pavilion Masters. However, while it was important to pick a side as soon as possible, it was also important that they chose the strongest. Strength came in many forms. For starters, there was the strength of collaborators. The stronger collaborators a side possessed, the more help these collaborators could be. Many elders had criticized Phoenix Rain for partnering with Zero Wing. However, after Blackwater's defeat and the Evil Dragon Battle Team's annihilation, some of these elders had begun to see her in a new light. Sorry for making you wait. I had some preparations to see to. Now that we're here, let's begin, Xueqi said as he approached the meeting table. He then took the bronze tablet from his bag. The instant the bronze tablet appeared, the three Dragon Phoenix Pavilion elders' eyes shone, their yearning for the bronze tablet overflowing. Although the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion had several secret technique tablets of their own, none were for magical classes. While they could not deny the usefulness of those secret techniques, in terms of benefits to magical class players such as themselves, those techniques paled in comparison to the secret spellcasting technique. Team Leader Yifeng, I believe you know about the secret technique tablets. If you want the best effect from the legacy, it is best if you prepare tools that can assist players in increasing their focus. This way, you can earn twice the reward with half the effort, Phoenix Rain suggested. If your side hasn't prepared, I have a few bottles of magic wine that I can share. When consumed, one experiences similar effects to being in the trial tower, and each bottle has a duration of 30 minutes. As Phoenix Rain said so, she removed several bottles from her bag. She had produced these bottles of magic wine with the epic tool she had won in the dark auction. I didn't expect Rain to be so generous. The materials needed to brew the magic wine are very rare, and she has only brewed a small number. If she gives away some of her own share, she'll miss plenty of opportunities later inside the secret technique space. This can't be helped. Tools capable of increasing a player's focus are simply too rare. At the end of the day, Zero Wing is still an upstart guild with weak foundations. I have heard that Zero Wing intends to participate in the contest for Thunder Island. Now that Rain is helping them, they will be more useful on Thunder Island. Previously, I heard that Pantheon's people had sought Rain out to discuss a partnership. If that child had agreed, she wouldn't have to sacrifice her own resources like this. The three elders discussed Phoenix Rain's actions. The secret spellcasting technique was the only reason they had agreed to help Phoenix Rain on Thunder Island. Otherwise, they wouldn't have poked their noses into such a troublesome matter. Phoenix Rain and Nine Dragons Emperor were equally powerful. However, the difference between their collaborators was obvious at a glance. While they did not mean to belittle Zero Wing, Nine Dragons Emperor had partnered with the Super Guild King's return. Moreover, recently, Miracle had also agreed to a non-aggression pact with Nine Dragons Emperor for the contest on Thunder Island. Nine Dragons Emperor's advantages far outstripped Phoenix Rain's. Just as Phoenix Rain was about to reveal another bottle of magic wine, Xueqi shook his head and said, "Thank you for your goodwill, but we have come prepared." "You already have them?" Phoenix Rain could not help her astonishment. She hadn't expected Zero Wing to have such a foundation. Before she had won the epic tool that produced magic wine, the Phoenix Pavilion had only had a few tools that improved a player's concentration. Meanwhile, Aqua Rose and the others, who stood by the side, weren't surprised in the least. If one wanted to discuss tools that improved focus, nothing throughout Star Moon Kingdom and its several neighboring kingdoms and empires could compare to the 100-berry wine. The 100-berry wine's effects were simply wondrous. Unfortunately, the supply was limited. To improve their efficiency with learning the secret spellcasting technique, Xueqi had given each of them 5 bottles. Aqua, you guys take these. Each person only gets 1 bottle, Xueqi said before revealing 5 bottles of soul water. The crimson droplet within the glass bottles immediately attracted everyone's attention. The instant Xueqi took out these glass bottles, everyone present thirsted for the soul water. Even a fool could tell how amazing the soul water was. When Aqua Rose and the others held the soul water, they could not help but take a deep gulp, their minds practically shouting at them to consume the soul water. How could such a frightening tool actually exist? The 3 elders were dumbfounded as they stared at the soul water in wonder. Chapter 12-13. Supersensitive State. Under Chapter 12-13. Supersensitive State. Phoenix Rain was similarly shocked when she saw the soul water. There were plenty of delicacies in God's domain. However, those were only attractive in terms of taste and smell. However, the soul water was different. It emanated a powerfully attractive aura. It seems that I really have underestimated you. Phoenix Rain chuckled as she shook her head. Previously, she worried that Zero Wing's 5 members would waste the legacy slots. However, that concern seemed unfounded. Following which, Xueqi activated the bronze tablet for the secret spellcasting technique while everyone else began to draw a copy of the magic array that had appeared on the tablet. As the basic magic arrays began taking form, they resonated with the array on the bronze tablet. A black hole then formed on the tablet, pulling everyone but Xueqi into it. In the blink of an eye, Xueqi was alone in the meeting room. I've done all I can. How much you grow will depend on you now. Xueqi glanced at the now empty space where Aqua Rose and the others had stood before turning and leaving the room. Elsewhere, after being pulled into the black hole, Aqua Rose and the others were transported to the entrance of a 9-story-tall, golden temple. The temple was nearly 600 meters tall, looming like a large mountain. Its appearance alone shocked Aqua Rose and the others. This temple also radiated a suffocating pressure, making everyone's movements extraordinarily sluggish. So, this is the secret technique space? Aqua Rose and the others looked around curiously. The pair of bronze doors before them was tightly shut, and it did not seem as if they could enter the temple at the moment. 2 large words had been carved into the doors. Bronze Temple. Suddenly, the figure of an old man with a hunched back appeared before the doors. This old man wore a kind expression. However, as these players inspected the man carefully, they discovered that, despite only being a phantom, he was incredibly strong. Bronze Temple Guardian, Phantom, Grand Wizard. Level? HP? / A Grand Wizard was the Tier 5 class of an elementalist. Even in empires, a Grand Wizard was an apex existence. Even emperors had to treat these powerhouses with respect. Although the Grand Wizard before them was only a phantom, he was still an invincible existence compared to Tier 1 players like Aqua Rose and the others. Heaven-blessed individuals. Welcome to the Bronze Temple. You are only allocated 6 hours of legacy time. However, you can extend this legacy time with your performance. The Bronze Temple has a total of 9 floors, and each floor has numerous sets of secret techniques. You are only allowed to pick 1 set from each floor each time you enter the Bronze Temple. However, as you have come to this place through an incomplete tablet, there is only 1 complete set available inside the Bronze Temple. The rest are incomplete. Of the temple's 9 floors, you have 1 chance to learn 1 aspect of the complete legacy from each floor. Although you may acquire the complete legacy on the first floor for free, you will have to defeat a predetermined opponent to obtain the complete legacies on the remaining floors. The more floors you clear, the longer you may visit the Bronze Temple. When you pass the second floor, You will gain 1 extra hour inside, 2 hours for passing the 3rd floor, 4 hours for the 4th floor, and so on. You only have 1 chance to learn from each floor. Regardless of how many times you return here in the future, if you cannot pass the last floor you reached, you cannot obtain more legacies. Please keep this in mind. When the Bronze Temple Guardian finished speaking, he vanished. Following which, the bronze gates slowly opened. So, this is how it works. Realization dawned on Aqua Rose. It was no wonder why it was mentioned that the first entry into a secret technique tablet was the most effective, while subsequent entries would be less so. After all, the higher a player's skill level, the more difficult it would be to improve. This was similar to skill completion rates. The closer one was to reaching 100% completion rate, the more difficult it would be to raise it. If a player reached the 4th floor on their first attempt, but couldn't reach the 5th floor during their second attempt, then they wouldn't obtain any legacies. They would have wasted a trip. Aqua Rose and Phoenix Rain's group of 10 entered the Bronze Temple. The Bronze Temple's first floor had a similar setup to a football stadium. A massive magic water ball dominated the center of this stadium. It was obvious that the players were supposed to receive their legacies from this liquid orb. As this wasn't the first time Phoenix Rain's group had entered a secret technique space, they habitually retrieved their magic wine from their bags and drank it. Without hesitation, they approached the water ball in the center. In the next moment, Phoenix Rain's group of 5 entered the water ball and disappeared as if they had been transported to a different space. Big Sis Aqua, let's go too, Violet Cloud said excitedly. The secret spellcasting technique was a combat technique tailored for magical classes. If she could grasp it, she could definitely improve her techniques. Let's enter as well. Aqua Rose nodded. She then took out the soul water from her bag and drank it. Soul water, when consumed, increases players' focus for 2 hours. Cooldown, 10 hours. The instant Aqua Rose drank the soul water, she felt as if she had somehow left her body. Her mind experienced a calm like never before, and she felt physically stronger and more agile than ever. When she tried to recall the void steps she had previously learned, countless thoughts and inspiration bombarded her mind. Aqua Rose hadn't been aware that consuming the soul water placed one in a super-sensitive state. This state was far beyond what players experienced even in absurdly high mana-dense environments. The guild leader really is impressive. This soul water is at least 10 times stronger than the 100-berry wine. Alluring Summer commented in astonishment. When she had first joined Zero Wing, she had been thoroughly impressed by the 100-berry wine. The beverage had helped her improve significantly within a short time, allowing her skill completion rate to rise from 80% to 82%. Yet after so long in Zero Wing, she had only reached an 85% skill completion rate. Although this increase seemed minute, in reality, her spells had undergone a qualitative transformation. As for Zhao Yueru, she was at a loss for words. The more she knew about Shi Feng, the more mysterious he seemed. Shi Feng was a Pandora's box, hiding countless secrets. When she had discovered that Yi Feng and Black Flame were actually the same person, she had been shocked. After all, she had understood what kind of background Yi Feng had started with. He had nothing to lean on, yet now, he was the guild leader of Star Moon Kingdom's #1 guild. Once Aqua Rose's team had familiarized themselves with the super-sensitive state, they entered the magic water ball. Inside one of the candlelight trading firm's special forging rooms, Melancholic Smile walked in with over 2,000 logs of ebony. Each ebony stack contained 20 logs. Although the special forging room was quite spacious, it was not enough room to store so many logs. Shi Feng had no choice but to store them in his bag space for now, leaving 300 logs out to experiment on later. Why isn't it succeeding? Shi Feng wore a confused expression as he held the Crimson Philosopher's Stone and stared at the pile of ash on the floor. Is it really impossible to transmute ebony into green ebony? So far, he had performed elemental strengthening on more than 200 logs of ebony. However, every attempt either did nothing or tuned the wood to ash. If others knew that Shi Feng had wasted over 200 logs of ebony, they would have fainted from anger. Although ebony was not a rare wood, it wasn't available in large quantities. Each log could sell for 20 silver on the market, only slightly cheaper than a magic crystal. One could purchase a common mount for the price of 200 plus logs. Following which, Shi Feng tried using the Philosopher's Stone's 3 other skills, alchemical conversion, elemental refinement, and alchemical synthesis. However, the results were the same. Though, surprisingly, when Xueqi used alchemical synthesis on 50 logs, he obtained purple origin wood rather than green ebony. Purple origin wood was a rare wood. Similar to diamond wood, it was an excellent component for crafting ships. However, using 50 logs of ebony to obtain 1 log of purple origin wood was obviously not worthwhile. Each log was only worth 6 to 7 gold, yet synthesizing it from ebony would cost 10 gold per log. No, it must be that my approach is wrong. Xueqi suddenly thought of something after seeing his repeated failures. The reason ebony could become green ebony was its mana density. Green ebony only manifested where the mana density was quite high. This was also why green ebony was so rare. If there isn't enough mana, I'll have to supply it. Xueqi smiled. He then took a large pile of magic crystals from his bag and used them to fuel elemental strengthening. On his first try, he used 1 magic crystal. Although the strengthening failed, the ebony remained intact. On his second try, he used 2 crystals. The results were the same. It's no good even with 29 magic crystals? Xueqi was speechless. However, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and continue trying. He then used 30 magic crystals to strengthen the log of ebony before him. As the magic crystals began to disintegrate, the mana within them surged into the log of ebony. Immediately, the sound of a system notification reached Xueqi's ears. System. Congratulations. Strengthening successful. You have obtained green ebony. Chapter 12-14. Raising Fame. Under. Chapter 12-14. Raising Fame. Finally! Xueqi released a sigh of relief when he saw the green ebony log on the stone table before him, a hint of excitement flashing across his eyes. Although the magic crystal cost had been high, strengthening ebony into green ebony would save him a lot of time. His only other option would be harvesting green ebony, and he had no idea where to find the large quantity he needed. A single advanced transport carriage required 15 logs of green ebony. Even if he sent Blackie and the others to grind trolls in the Crying Ghost Ridge, they'd be lucky to obtain 8 or 9 logs per day. Furthermore, the Crying Ghost Ridge was currently home to the ancient abyssal monsters. The risk was simply too high. A single mistake could claim Blackie and the others' lives. In Xueqi's opinion, trading 30 magic crystals and 1 log of normal ebony for a log of green ebony was worthwhile. However, magic crystals are going to be a problem. I can't mass-produce green ebony just yet. Xueqi looked at the magic crystals in his bag and felt a headache brewing. Currently, with the 40,000+ magic crystals left in his bag, he could create plenty of green ebony. However, if a guild wished to develop, it needed to invest resources in various aspects. If he wanted Zero Wing to advance by leaps and bounds within a short time, he needed to invest even more. This was especially true for the guild's elite members. Their training in the Divine Colosseum could not be forsaken. Considering this, Xueqi somewhat lacked magic crystals. Although he had made a fortune in the Dark Arena, he had already spent his earnings. Moreover, he owed Phoenix Rain a monstrous debt of 250,000 magic crystals, which he needed to pay off within the next 5 days. The majority of his earnings from the Dark Arena consisted of weapons and equipment. If he traded these excellent items for coins and magic crystals, he could pay back the magic crystals he owed Phoenix Rain with a sizable stock to spare, enough to begin his city's construction. However, Zero Wing was expanding rapidly, and in urgent need of excellent weapons and equipment. Unless he had truly run out of options, Xueqi wanted to avoid selling those items. It seems that I'll have to increase Stone Forest Town's fame, Xueqi pondered. Currently, Stone Forest Town was an intermediate town. Not only did it occupy a massive area, but it also had 3 magic towers, increasing the town's mana density significantly. Although the town had only reopened shortly after the war, far more players now occupied the town. However, if he wanted to earn a fortune from Stone Forest Town, attracting Star Moon Kingdom's players wasn't enough. After all, There was a limit to how many players in Star Moon Kingdom could afford a membership for the battle arena. However, there were plenty of players available in the neighboring kingdoms and empires. Unfortunately, these players either didn't know about Stone Forest Town, or it wasn't an attractive enough reason to make the journey. Considering his options, Xueqi began to strengthen the ebony he had. If he wanted Stone Forest Town's fame to reach more players, he needed a convenient transportation system. Mass-producing Burning Abyss's modified advanced transport carriage would solve that problem. The nearest teleportation point to Stone Forest Town was roughly 10 hours away on foot. If one used a common mount, they could reach the town in half the time. Even so, 5 hours was still a very long time. The advanced transport carriage increased a player's movement speed by 150%. It was similar to a mysterious iron mount. However, with mana combustion, the transport carriage's movement speed could be increased by another 15%. Moreover, this 15% increase was based on the 150% base movement speed. In other words, the advanced transport carriage would increase a player's movement speed by a total of 172.5% when using mana combustion. That speed could already rival a secret silver mount. A journey that originally took 10 hours on foot would now be complete in a little over 3 hours. To high-level players, who frequently traveled for 5 or 6 hours to reach their grinding spots, 3 hours of travel was acceptable. Moreover, Xueqi intended to offer even more bountiful rewards for the battle arena. Top-tier weapons and equipment were not particularly attractive to powerful independent experts. Hence, if he wished to attract more people, he needed to offer items that those independent experts wanted. He might not have previously had such items, but now he did. As long as independent experts wanted them, they were fully capable of obtaining top-tier weapons and equipment. However, combat techniques were a different story. Originally, Xueqi had thought of offering the secret sword technique slots as a reward. However, now that he had the secret spellcasting technique, he could offer those. Although he would lose 2 slots as a result, this reward would definitely drive God's Domain's independent experts crazy. Time passed quickly. Before Xueqi had realized it, he had spent the entire night creating green ebony. After the long night of work, he had produced 600 logs of green ebony. Unfortunately, elemental strengthening success rate wasn't 100%. He had spent over 20,000 magic crystals to obtain these 600 logs. Fortunately, with 600 logs of green ebony, they could manufacture 40 advanced transport carriages for transporting goods and players to and from Stone Forest Town. With a large number of rental carriages as well, they would have more than enough carriages to meet the town's needs. Now, he just needed to manufacture the advanced transport carriages. Manufacturing the advanced transport carriage was incredibly tedious. Fortunately, he had employed the help of the NPC master engineer Rodney. With Burning Abyss and Rodney working together, they could craft the advanced transport carriage relatively quickly. As for the advanced speedboats, he would have to set that aside for now. After all, they hadn't even dealt with the diamond wood issue yet. How could they possibly begin building ships? Xueqi had also produced plenty of magic array scrolls and advanced mana armor kits. Xueqi now had 2 more sets of double protection barrier magic array scrolls and 2 sets of divine beasts descent magic array scrolls. If not for his limited materials, he could have produced even more. As for the advanced mana armor kit, Xueqi had forged over 600. Aside from a fraction reserved for guild members, he intended to use the remainder to lure customers to the Candlelight Trading Firm and as daily rewards for the Battle Arena's tournament. Time sure flies by. However, these advanced mana armor kits should last us for quite some time. Now, I just need to inform players in other countries, Xueqi said as he smiled in satisfaction. The advanced mana armor kit was exclusive to Zero Wing and the Candlelight Trading Firm. It was also one of the best available armor kits currently. With the addition of the secret spellcasting technique, he could already imagine the commotion Stone Forest Town would cause. Neither the advanced mana armor kits nor the secret spellcasting technique could be purchased with coins. Most likely, even independent experts would not be able to hold themselves back from joining the Battle Arena's tournament. As Xueqi was about to write a post on the official forums, Melancholic Smile contacted him. Guild leader, the Phoenix Pavilion Master has emerged from the secret technique space and said she wishes to discuss something with you. She is waiting in the top floor meeting room. She's out already? Xueqi could not help his surprise. From what she had heard from Phoenix Rain, even a powerful expert could easily remain in a bronze secret technique space for over 12 hours. Much less an expert like Phoenix Rain, yet only 10 hours had passed. Logically, she should not be out so soon. Chapter 12-15. Super Large-Scale Team Dungeon. Chapter 12-15. Super Large-Scale Team Dungeon. The Candlelight Trading Firm's top-floor meeting room. As soon as Xueqi entered the room, he noticed the change in Phoenix Rain, who was currently sat beside a French window. If Phoenix Rain had radiated a calm, collected feeling with the aura of a superior, she now felt free and natural. Although there was only a slight change to her temperament, Xueqi could tell that Phoenix Rain's harvest from the secret technique space had been significant. No wonder why the various superpowers are desperate for secret technique tablets. Their effects are truly extraordinary. Xueqi was inwardly surprised. If a bronze tablet was already so effective, Xueqi found it hard to imagine what kind of effects the golden tablet, which the mysterious NPC youth had stolen, would have. Phoenix Pavilion Master. You sure are early. I had assumed you would be in there for at least 30 hours, Xueqi said as he sat down. May I know what urgent matter you wish to discuss? Although this might sound a little blunt, I need to know. Do you have any of that soul water left? Phoenix Rain asked, her expression stern as she looked at Xueqi. A faint hint of anticipation glittered in her eyes. If you still have some, I am willing to purchase it for 50 gold per bottle or magic crystals of equivalent value. Xueqi was, more or less, surprised to hear Phoenix Rain's question. Even the most expensive consumable item that could improve a player's focus did not exceed 20 gold. In Zero Wing, guild members could purchase the 100-berry wine from the Dark Den for around 8 or 9 gold. Yet, Phoenix Rain had offered to buy soul water for 50 gold per bottle without hesitation. Phoenix Pavilion Master, why are you suddenly so interested in the soul water? Xueqi asked curiously. It was impossible to determine the soul water's effects based on its description. Only by testing it personally would one understand its benefits. He had obtained a total of 6 drops of soul water and had stored them in 6 separate glass bottles, 5 of which he had already given to Aqua Rose and the others. He had saved the last bottle for himself in case he needed its effects. Logically, Phoenix Rain shouldn't have any way of knowing the soul water's true value. It's difficult not to notice the soul water's effects even if I don't want to. Team leader Yifeng, you've never entered a secret technique space, so you might not fully understand the situation. Inside a bronze rank secret technique space, anybody capable of reaching the 4th floor in 6 hours on their first attempt should be able to comprehend the legacy they chose easily. Those with talent might even be able to reach the 4th floor in less than 6 hours. As for reaching the 6th floor in 6 hours, extremely few geniuses have ever managed the feat. Revealing a bitter smile, Phoenix Rain continued. However, among Aqua Rose's group, even the weakest one among them reached the 6th floor within 6 hours, while the other 4 reached the 7th floor. Although she acknowledged that Aqua Rose and the others were quite talented, the fact that the weakest among them had reached the 6th floor within 6 hours was something she could not accept. Throughout the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, the number of people that had managed to reach the 6th floor in a bronze secret technique space in 6 hours could be counted on one hand. Every one of these people was a monster that had already reached the domain realm. But what of Aqua Rose and the others? Even the strongest among them had only reached the refinement realm and wasn't even close to the flowing water realm, much less grasping a domain. Yet, Aqua Rose and the others' performance was astonishing. She would never believe that someone could rely on their own abilities to achieve such a result. The only possibility Phoenix Rain could think of was the soul water Xueqi had given the girls before they entered. So that's the issue. Realization dawned on Xueqi. I do still have some soul water. However, it's far too valuable. I don't have a lot on hand right now. If you would like some, I can trade them to you, but I want neither coins nor magic crystals. Rather, I would like to borrow the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's strength to help me with something. Once the task had been completed, I'll give you 10 bottles of soul water. Selling the soul water was the most foolish thing he could do. He wouldn't even sell the liquid if someone offered him 300 gold per bottle, not to mention 50 gold. 100 souls were required to make a single drop of soul water. This limited the soul water's production. He didn't even have enough for his own guild members, not to mention selling it to others. Moreover, if he mass-produced the soul water, the soul orb would be exposed. 10 bottles. Phoenix Rain pondered. 10 bottles of soul water wasn't nearly enough. She wouldn't even be able to supply her direct subordinates. However, after giving the matter some thought, she found it reasonable. The soul water could enhance a player's comprehension and allow them to reach the 7th floor of a bronze temple within 6 hours. How could such a treasure be available in large quantities? Although a bronze secret technique was the easiest secret technique to learn, it was still extremely difficult to complete all 9 floors. Not one player throughout the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion had comprehended an entire set of bronze-rank combat techniques. If she could get her hands on the soul water, however, someone in the guild might. Comprehending a combat technique to the 7th floor would already massive boost one's combat power. If one fully comprehended a complete bronze combat technique, their combat power would soar. May I know what you wish to use the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's strength for? Phoenix Rain asked. It's very simple. You just need to help me raid a dungeon, Xueqi said, chuckling. Raid a dungeon? Phoenix Rain asked, confused. Zero Wing already has so many experts. Are they not enough? Zero Wing indeed had a vast collection of experts. Raiding a level 45, 100-man team dungeon shouldn't be an issue. While Hell mode might be challenging, once the team reached level 45, even that shouldn't pose as a problem for Zero Wing. No, they are not enough. I want to borrow at least 100 people, Xueqi said after considering the matter. 100? Are you trying to raid? Phoenix Rain suddenly recalled a specific dungeon. That's right. The level 50, super large-scale team dungeon, Flaming Ruins. Xueqi nodded. In God's Domain, the largest team dungeons before level 50 were 100-man team dungeons. However, after level 50, super large-scale team dungeons would unlock. The minimum number of players required to enter these super large-scale dungeons was 200, while the maximum was 500. There was only one level 50 super large-scale team dungeon throughout Star Moon Kingdom, the Flaming Ruins. If you wanted to turn Stone Forest Town into a holy land for players, obtaining the first clear of the Flaming Ruins was of the utmost importance. The various large guilds in God's Domain were also preparing for such dungeons. If one could obtain the first clear of a level 50, 100-man Hell mode team dungeon, they would obtain a 3-star guild residence promotion order. If one managed to obtain the first clear of a level 50, super large-scale Hell mode team dungeon, they could obtain a town relocation order. The town relocation order was even more valuable than a town building order. It allowed players to move a town they owned to any location they desired. Chapter 1216. Stone Forest Town's Shocking Transformation. Under Chapter 1216. Stone Forest Town's Shocking Transformation. The Flaming Ruins? Phoenix Rain fell into deep thought as she looked at Xueqi. A short moment later she said, "All right, I promise you. Notify me in advance when you're going to raid the Flaming Ruins. When the time comes, I'll ready the necessary manpower. However, I'll say this first. You should know that the death penalty of a super large-scale team dungeon is greater than that of a large-scale team dungeon. If we suffer 3 team wipes, I'll withdraw my men. I also won't return the 10 bottles of soul water." The difficulty of a super large-scale normal mode team dungeon could rival that of a 100-man Hell mode team dungeon. While she wasn't trying to belittle Zero Wing, she believed that even if Zero Wing sent a 100-man team consisting entirely of level 50 Tier 2 players, it would be impossible for them to obtain the first clear of a level 50, 100-man Hell mode team dungeon. She also had no intention of sending her own experts to their deaths. "That won't be a problem," Xueqi replied without hesitation. In the past, the various large guilds had not placed much importance on super large-scale team dungeons, because the items dropped in these dungeons were basically the same as the ones obtained in 100-man large-scale team dungeons. Rather than waste time raiding the more difficult super large-scale team dungeons, raiding several large-scale team dungeons was much more efficient. However, there were bound to be some players and teams that loved to challenge their limits. Eventually, after continuous efforts, a team had managed to obtain the first clear of a super large-scale team dungeon. Back then, many people had expressed their contempt for these people. After all, while these people were busy suppressing their levels and raiding a level 50 super large-scale team dungeon, mainstream players had long since exceeded them by over 20 levels. Even if they managed to obtain top-tier equipment from the dungeon, such an enormous gap in levels would render the advantage of having such equipment meaningless. Only epic items would be of any value. Yet epic items rarely dropped even in super large-scale team dungeons. Hence, raiding such a dungeon was simply not worth the effort. However, nobody could have ever imagined that one could actually obtain a town relocation order from these seemingly worthless super large-scale team dungeons. It was common knowledge that the NPC towns players captured had their locations fixed. Meanwhile, if one wished to upgrade a basic town into an actual city, they would have to invest an astronomical amount of resources as well as plenty of time and effort. If developing even one town was already so tedious, one could just imagine how troublesome it would be to develop multiple towns. Not to mention, the NPC towns captured would eventually become outdated. Take Stone Forest Town for example. Due to the town's location next to a regional dungeon like the Stoneclaw Mountains, it became a travel destination for both players and guilds. However, once mainstream players went past level 50, they would no longer be able to enter the regional dungeon. One could just imagine the outcome of such a situation. At that time, the town would definitely lose its popularity, and its development would stagnate. Even with the support of the battle arena, it would be very difficult to keep the town alive. After all, the magic tower wasn't something unique. As players reached higher levels, the various large guilds would also be able to obtain its design. By then, Stone Forest Town's high mana density would no longer stand out. Moreover, after their NPC towns became outdated, guilds would also have to capture a new NPC town and start the development cycle all over again, investing another considerable chunk of manpower, resources, time, money, and so on. Hence, the advantage of a town relocation order immediately became apparent. With a town relocation order, players could transfer a town to anywhere within the same country, allowing guilds to retain their hard work and pool all their resources into developing a few select towns. However, the town relocation order was a unique reward for obtaining the first clear of a super large-scale team dungeon. Once a super large-scale team dungeon was cleared, no matter how many times it got raided later on, it would no longer drop a town relocation order. Currently, mainstream players were approaching level 50. Even if independent players of other kingdoms and empires found out about Stone Forest Town's existence, they would take this aspect into account when considering whether they should migrate over or not. This was also the reason why, despite the various superpowers being greatly envious of the profit Stone Forest Town was raking in, they did not make any actual moves to take it. However, if Stone Forest Town could relocate to a map that was even more suitable for current independent players, its attraction would definitely increase exponentially. Moreover, once players found out that Stone Forest Town was capable of continuously relocating according to players' level, this aspect would become a fatal attraction for many independent experts. At that time, just the amount of magic crystals Stone Forest Town could rake in through the battle arena would be astronomical. Hence, Xueqi had to obtain the town relocation order no matter the cost. Following which, Xueqi and Phoenix Rain signed a contract. He used a bottle of soul water as the deposit with the delivery of the remaining 9 bottles pending the contract's completion. Phoenix Rain did not particularly mind this condition. After all, the soul water did not have a particular effectivity period. It could be used at any time. Moreover, the spellcasting secret technique tablet had been used once already, so she would have to wait for a month before she could send anyone else in. By then, the 10 bottles of soul water would have long since entered her hands. Inside the dense forest a short distance away from Stone Forest Town. Due to the opening of the traffic route to Stone Forest Town, as well as the hiring of the temporary carriages, the number of players and NPC merchants going to Stone Forest Town had increased significantly. Right now, the traffic route itself was already a part of the Stoneclaw Mountains scenery. At this moment, over 100 carriages were traveling through the dense forest. There were even advanced carriages among them, which were completely different from the temporary ones hired by Zero Wing. Meanwhile, Their passengers were all very high-leveled, with even the lowest among them at level 40. If placed in a large guild, they all would be elites at the very least. Vice Commander, these people are too strong. We should wait for the next batch. A level 41 grey-clad assassin hidden in the dense forest quietly suggested to the level 42 ranger carrying a dark gold longbow, standing before him. Damn it! How many groups has it been already? The resolute man carrying the longbow exclaimed in frustration. If I had known something like this would happen, I would have swapped hunting areas with the Demon Soul Guild. We'll lose out on making a fortune at this rate. The various dark guilds mingling in Starmoon City had already signed a contract with Heaven's Burial, stating that they would dispatch their members to kill the players operating around Stone Forest Town, using this as an opportunity to strike down Stone Forest Town's development. Originally, this should have been a good deal for them. After all, plenty of independent players and teams were traveling to and from Stone Forest Town. They did not lack prey at all. However, just an hour ago, Stone Forest Town had suddenly made an announcement that directly disrupted their guild's business. Stone Forest Town had revealed that it was going to replace its carriages with better ones as well as increase the rewards for the tournament held at the Battle Arena. For the mini-tournaments held every day, anyone that managed to become the champion of the said tournament would obtain not only top-tier weapons and equipment as a reward, but also magic crystals and advanced mana armor kits. The top 3 players would receive similar rewards except for the advanced mana armor kit. Most importantly, however, players that became champions of the mini-tournament would get to live in a private suite on the Battle Arena's 7th floor for 10 days. The Battle Arena would also hold a large tournament once every 15 days, and the rewards for the champion were even more terrific. Aside from being able to obtain weapons, equipment, and advanced mana armor kits, the champion would have the opportunity to inherit a combat technique as well as live in a private suite on the 8th floor, which was also the top floor of the Battle Arena, for a month. Meanwhile, the top 5 players would also get to live on the 8th floor for a month. The quality of weapons and equipment awarded, as well as the quantity of advanced mana armor kits, would vary depending on their rank. In addition, those that received a private suite would have complete management over their own suites. As long as they had the money, they could spend some coins at the Adventurers Association and have the association construct a magic array in their suite to allow them to use return scrolls to teleport back to their room. This was an entirely new benefit. In the past, the rooms were only loaned to players temporarily. Now, however, players would become the contracted owners of the private suites for the entire duration of their stay. Due to the introduction of these several factors, a large number of powerful independent experts who were initially only a little interested in moving to Stone Forest Town took action right away. This development became the misfortune of dark players. After all, among the several groups of players that had entered Stone Forest Town so far, not a single one of them should be provoked. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.